The legendary Hollywood director, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301, New York Trip. Subscription recommendation. The idea of the script, conceived by Lyman, naturally came from the later Korean film Train to Busan. This film was produced in 2016. On the first day of its release, it broke the record of the highest number of viewers on the first day of Korean film and television, with more than 870,000 viewers. In the end, the market accumulated 11.56 million viewers and 93.1 billion won, becoming the holder of the highest annual box office record in South Korea in 2016. In addition, the screenings in other countries and regions are also impressive. In Hong Kong Island, the total box office revenue was more than 66.3 million Hong Kong dollars, becoming the 16th best-selling film in film history and the first in the Asian film box office. In Taiwan province, the total box office revenue was 340 million Taiwan dollars, which is also the best-selling Korean film in film history. The greatest excellence of Train to Busan is the focus on exploring human nature in a design of a collapsed, doomsday social environment. The reason why people are human is because they protect the weak, help their peers, trust strangers, and even disappoint with the dark side of human beings, as well as the ugliness of some people in the face of danger. All of these constitute the film's portrayal of human beings themselves. The bitter black satire is the biggest feature of this work, the incompetence of the government. Although there were warnings, they chose to conceal the truth of the facts in order to avoid causing social panic. However, it was precisely this concealment that caused the sudden outbreak of the accident and the instant paralysis of the transportation system, which eventually led to a series of tragedies. Social problems and the ugliness of human nature are put on the table together, and the delicate connotations presented are the most different points of Train to Busan from other zombie movies. The commendable closed space setting of the train has imposed a restriction on the movement of zombies, and also brought a sublimation to the conflict between the survivors and the zombies in the movie. Such a plot will undoubtedly make the story more real and credible, and make the sudden conflict of the drama more reasonable. The setting of the means of confrontation is the same, because it is on the train. No one has firepower weapons, otherwise it happened in other places. Maybe many Americans took out firepower guns from the ammunition depot at home, and knocked down the zombies. Such a solid basic setting will bring a better viewing experience to the direction of the story, and also create an atmosphere for the subsequent plot. Of course, so many benefits have now become New York Trip. I don't know if the Koreans can make similar masterpieces in the future, but what does this have to do with Lyman? Anyway, after discussing with Eric Newman, the design of these plots became the ideas of New York Trip. The ending is also that the male protagonist sacrifices himself and jumps off the train with the zombies to save the lives of his daughter and a pregnant woman, and finally successfully reaches the encirclement deployed by the troops. Would it be better if the male protagonist didn't die? Is it really good to be so abusive? Eric Newman couldn't help asking after writing down the plot. This makes the theme more shocking. Understand? He didn't die in vain. He died for his daughter. Will the audience blame him for this? Eric wanted to say yes, but then he thought, this guy's movies don't have many happy endings, and it's common for the protagonist to be abused. For example, Paul in Buried died directly in the ground, and none of the protagonists in Fury survived. In Bad Guys, several people died, and the protagonist was completely blackened, living the life he least wanted to live before, which is also a kind of torture. Since there is a precedent, and Lyman is the financial sponsor, he can't say anything more. Let it be abused. Anyway, his task is to fill in the plot and lines required by the story as much as possible. How to shoot is the director's business. As for Zack Snyder, he is still immersed in the plot he has conceived, thinking about what kind of shots to use to show it. This guy's also lucky. In his previous life, Zack Snyder successfully tested the waters with Dawn of the Dead and took his first step out. To be honest, the film did not bring out his talents at all, so it was quite mediocre. In this life, it is hard to say. Anyway, Lyman intends to tap into his use of color. This guy may not be the best storyteller in Hollywood, but he will definitely be the director with the most unique style of film color. New York Trip is a natural fit for Zack Snyder. The first film is so appropriate, and this guy's image style must be sharper and richer than in his previous life. Thinking of this, Lemon couldn't help but look forward to it. 2 days later, the Dyer commercial was officially completed. In addition to the remaining remuneration being deposited into Lemon's account, Eva Green also hurried to the set of The Day After Tomorrow. Lemon stayed in the company, and in addition to handling some daily affairs, he confirmed the project with Zack Snyder. As for the script, Eric Newman is still writing it, but the theme of the movie is very clear. It is the first debut work of Zack Snyder in his life. He is very motivated. After knowing that there is no problem with investment, he took the lead in preparing the preliminary work of the movie. However, for a little gimmick, Lemon also bought the copyright of Dawn of the Dead and let Abraham, the owner of the copyright, participate in the project. There is no way. The condition for this guy to sell the copyright is to obtain a part of the investment share of New York Trip. Moreover, he and Zack Snyder and Eric Newman had already discussed it and directly joined Firefly Pictures in the name of the studio. So far, the approximate shooting budget of the entire project is $70 million, of which $10 million is invested by their studio together, only profit dividends, and no participation in the subsequent operation of the copyright. In addition, Lemon invested $5 million in the studio, established by several people in the name of the company, accounting for 51% of the shares. In this way, everyone is happy, and New York Trip is officially established. Zack Snyder had never thought that such a debut film could attract so much investment. Besides being happy, he was more stressed. He basically controlled every project in the preparation of the film himself, wishing to be comprehensive and strive to make no mistakes. Equipment, venues, labor, props, costumes, film, and actors. Of course, don't think that $70 million is a lot, but for such a large scene and a movie that requires special effects and a large number of group actors, there is not much room for waste. There is no need to think about first-line stars. With so many main creators, it is impossible for a group portrait movie to spend all the money on one or two main actors. Originally, Zack Snyder wanted to invite Lemon to be the producer of New York Trip and give him the power of casting, but Lemon refused on the grounds that the company's affairs were busy. It's okay to just be an assistant producer and let Abraham be the chief producer. Well, this guy was originally a producer and also worked as a stagehand. Chapter 302 Recruiting Generals. Subscription recommendation. After Zack Snyder and Abraham left, Lemon came to the finance office and asked the representative of the accounting firm stationed there, "How are the company's accounts this month?" The man was a tall, thin middle-aged white man wearing glasses. He smiled at Lemon, took out the account book, and handed it to Lemon, reporting, "The bulk of the company's income this month is mainly from the North American box office share of Macro Love. As for Paramount, over the past 2 weeks, accounts of $73.26 million have been settled one after another. In addition, there are peripheral income from the company's previous works, including Saw, a total of $6.23 million. In addition, Europa Films has delivered the overseas share of the first part of Macro Love, which is about $13.25 million. There are still more than $70 million left, which will be received in the next few months. Well, although Macro Love has not been completely withdrawn from overseas, the cumulative revenue in various regions has reached $230 million. According to the current trend, it is estimated that it will be difficult to break through 300 million, and the landing point is about 250 million to 280 million. In terms of expenditure, in addition to daily management and staff salaries, and the bonuses issued a few days ago, the total expenditure is $7.42 million, plus $17.22 million in taxes, a total of $24.64 million. This tax of more than $17 million is still due to the premise of active tax avoidance. This also made Lemon understand why most of the wealthy in the United States like to support charity and establish personal foundations. If they don't think of a way, the money will be taken away by the state government. There is no other reason. There are too many tax items, and the taxes on the middle class are too high. Lemon thought for a moment and said, prepare 30 million in advance and deposit it into the bank account created by Schneider. There will be another 30 million in shooting budget later, which will be paid slowly depending on the shooting situation. Also, how much money do I have personally now? The financial representative took out another account book and said, this money did not go into the company's account. Paramount was required to deposit it directly into your bank account, including the director's salary and part of the box office incentives. The total is $9 million US. In addition, you can also take a share of the director's share for overseas and offline revenues. In addition, Europa Films also gave an incentive red envelope of about $200,000. With this calculation, Lemon's personal assets have reached more than $22 million US, plus shares in the company and studios, a mansion in Beverly Hills and a Mercedes-Benz commercial vehicle. Of course he was happy to have money. After Lemon signed, he asked the firm to continue to manage his personal property and then said, remember to give a portion of the income as dividends to Ryan. Yes, boss, I know. However, now with the original company's surplus, as well as the subsequent box office revenue and market income, the company's book liquidity is likely to reach $500 million. Boss, don't you want to try to invest this part of the money? Our firm has many favorable projects that can help you operate. This accounting firm is the best in the industry. They have undertaken a lot of business and are very willing to let them operate such excellent assets as Lemon. But the problem is that Lemon doesn't think this money is a lot. The company has other plans. Lemon declined. The man smiled and said no more. After all, it would be best if it could succeed, but it doesn't matter if it can't. Anyway, for him, it's all performance. After Lemon checked the accounts, he didn't explain anything to him and left on his own. He is now thinking about the distribution channels. After all, he watched his own project succeed after much effort, but in the end, most of the profits had to be divided with the channel dealers, and they took it wantonly. He didn't even complain. He said he was very willing, which definitely didn't mean he had a good attitude. Moreover, as the business gets bigger and bigger, no matter what, for a production company, the importance of channels is understood. No one wants to be strangled by others all the time. Even if Paramount is actually a good partner, the business world is not always determined by relationships. Besides, if the project is not profitable, Paramount will probably not have that kind of attitude. If you want to have a company that can distribute the film throughout the United States, Lemon has roughly estimated the market. If you want to build a company that can distribute the film nationwide, it will take 2 to 3 years to pave the way, and the cost will be roughly between $100 million and $150 million. For reference, DreamWorks established their North American distribution network in this way. Another way is to acquire a company with mature business, which will cost more than $200 million, and the upper limit is extremely high. The reference object is Lionsgate. With the support of major international investment banks, they rushed into Hollywood with money and acquired a company that was good at distribution and production to establish a foothold. Lemon's method is naturally the latter, which means that a large amount of working capital needs to be prepared, and sometimes it even needs to be higher than the market price to impress the shareholders. After all, for an investor who has a distribution company with good business, it is definitely possible to make money. Just like the early Lionsgate, being a middleman and distributing the projects of many other small production companies can easily make a profit. If the company's prospects of profitability are obvious, most people will not sell it unless the price is high. After Lemon walked out of the finance office, he saw that the company had nothing to do, so he planned to go to Warner Studios to see the progress of the movie that Gyro was tinkering with. Before he had time to leave, the girl at the front desk of the company called and said that Johnson was here. When Lemon heard it, he thought that he had been instructed to collect suitable distribution companies in the industry. Unexpectedly, it was not. According to what he meant, it was not easy to find a distribution company with good conditions in all aspects and shareholders willing to sell shares. He was still collecting information and had not found any interested parties. Then why did you come here? Lemon asked. The headhunting company has a target. Aren't you going to find a few suitable company managers? They found one. Who? Lemon asked. Johnson said, Benjamin Joseph, a former executive of MGM Pictures. Will he come? Lemon asked. This person resigned from MGM half a year ago and has not been looking for a job since. The headhunting company personnel I arranged have contacted him and he plans to start a new job again. Why did he resign from MGM? Lemon asked curiously. According to the investigation by the headhunting company, this person is a victim of the power struggle within MGM. The infighting between the top management and the board of directors caused him to be assigned from the head office to the British branch as the CEO. It seemed that his position had risen, but he stayed there for 3 years and was unable to return to the core management of the head office. Then he simply resigned. So is he willing to join Firefly Pictures? I don't know, but we have already arranged to meet. The only thing left is whether our conditions can impress the other party. Chapter 303 Mutual Satisfaction. Subscription recommendation. Benjamin Joseph is not very old, only 39 years old, which is a good age to display his talents. However, he looks a bit old. If his birth records had not been obtained by the headhunting company, it would not be doubted that he was in his 40s, almost 50. He is very tall, not fat, and looks quite gentle, but his face shape is not good, which somewhat destroys the overall impression. To be more specific, he is an old man with a round face whose age is completely inconsistent with his face. His hair is a little grey, and his hairline is even more worrying, as if he is going to develop into a Mediterranean. Several people met at a restaurant in Hollywood. He was wearing a black suit and a pair of glasses. Just as Lemon was looking at Joseph carefully, Joseph was also observing him. Many people in Hollywood may not pay too much attention to Firefly Pictures. After all, compared with Lemon's talent as a director, a small company founded by him is not worth much attention. Benjamin Joseph didn't care at first, but when the headhunting company contacted him, he also went to learn about this company. The predecessor, Rodrian Pictures, had been established for 5 or 6 years, and its development had been slow, and it could even be said that it didn't know how to operate. But such a small company with only a foundation, in the hands of Lemon, in just half a year, the performance was quite good. The production and development of series such as Saw was enough to explain too many problems. At least, as a director, Lemon not only has excellent directing ability, but also has his own advantages in the selection of film projects. He entered a TV station in the early 1990s, and has been working in the entertainment industry for nearly 13 years. He is also knowledgeable, but there are very few directors with such excellent vision. There is a template similar to George Lucas, Steven Spielberg and others. It's just that Lemon succeeded faster and younger. The two looked at each other, and Benjamin Joseph stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, Mr. Lemon." "Hello." Lemon smiled at him and nodded. This person's resume is really good. He is the management talent that Firefly Pictures needs most. Moreover, he just resigned, and it was a window period for him to work. Johnson, as the introducer of the headhunting company, livened up the atmosphere and said, "Everyone, please sit down." After everyone sat down, Lemon pushed the menu to Joseph and said, "You can order." Joseph was not polite and ordered 2 dishes at random and handed them to Lemon. Then, several people began to chat. Both sides wanted to test each other. Joseph sighed, "Mr. Lemon, your company is developing very fast." Lemon smiled and said, "It's not bad. The success of Saw and Macro Love has also stabilized the company initially." Then he said, "In fact, I'm best at filming business. It is very difficult to manage the company on a daily basis. I need someone to help me. Here it comes." The test gradually enters the main topic. Benjamin Joseph was considering finding a job. With his qualifications, this is not difficult. Agreeing to meet also means to investigate. So he asked, "What are Mr. Lemon's plans for the future of Firefly Pictures?" "I dare not say what the future will be like." Lemon was very practical. "I just want to make the company bigger and stronger." "Just production?" No. The distribution has become the company's next development focus. We have been working hard. It sounds good. Of course, Mr. Joseph, I sincerely invite you to join Firefly Pictures. If you are willing to come, I think the CEO of the administrative department of Firefly Pictures will be yours. Hearing the arrangement of the position, Joseph was not moved at all. During his time at MGM, His position in the industry was much stronger than that of a new generation of small companies like Firefly, and his intention was definitely not something that could be moved by a simple company position. Also, if you can come, the basic annual salary is $400,000 plus a 5% dividend reward for the department's performance. This is very practical, and treatment is always a standard for consideration. Before that, Joseph's annual salary at MGM was only $200,000, plus various related rewards, and his annual income after tax was only the income of the management of an ordinary large company, roughly around $400,000. Lyman also knew that, if he wanted to impress a manager with rich resume, he must start with salary. He didn't intend to be stingy, and he offered a very satisfactory figure for the basic salary, not to mention that performance rewards could be calculated separately. It would not be a big problem to exceed the income during the MGM period, or even double the income. Can I know what the company's administrative department is like? In terms of staff, Joseph's attitude really changed significantly. He didn't have a big impression of Firefly Pictures. He just felt that the potential was good, but he didn't have the attitude of joining. After all, he didn't lack similar jobs, so why not choose a company with greater room for advancement? Therefore, the only condition that could really impress him was salary. He was indeed very satisfied with this possible annual salary. I won't hide it from you. The company is currently short of staff in all departments, including the administrative department. If you take office, you may have to deal with many matters by yourself. However, I have been recruiting people. At the end, Lyman added, how many are there? Including you, there are only 5 in total. Joseph had a headache, which reminded him of the situation when he was in the British branch. The entire company was also short of staff. The key was that the headquarters did not have high expectations for these branches and only required them to cooperate with the head office to release movies. It was also at that time that he was busy every day, but the busier he was, the more meaningless he felt, so he resigned. Thinking of this, he wanted to get up and leave, but when he thought of the basic annual salary of $400,000 and the fact that Firefly Pictures was still a startup, the shortage of staff was forgivable. So he gritted his teeth and nodded. Thank you, Mr. Lyman, for your trust. I'm willing to join Firefly Pictures and do my job well. Lyman smiled and said, welcome to join. If possible, please complete the entry procedures as soon as possible. In addition, you can handle the recruitment of the department yourself. There is also a very urgent job, which may be the most important for you at the moment. That is to recollect the information of all employees in the company and set a suitable promotion space. Well, I can finally relax. Lyman looked at the back of Joseph leaving and felt very wonderful. Such an experienced person who seems to be quite pragmatic. If I hand over the daily management of the entire company to him, I can also get away from the various trivial matters of the company. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 Candidates, Subscription Recommendation. After completing the entry formalities, Benjamin Joseph successfully joined Firefly Pictures. As soon as he arrived, he began to recruit personnel for various departments of the company. Then, it was necessary to establish appropriate internal rules and regulations for awards, punishments, promotions, and demotions. These are all necessary, but Lyman originally had no management experience in this area, so he just dragged his feet. Now that there are professional talents, it's different. The internal operations have become visibly standardized. It's a good thing. He only needs to be responsible for the production department, which he is slightly familiar with. In the afternoon, Eric Newman wrote the script and brought Zack Snyder to the company again. He wanted to discuss casting with Lyman. Most of the shooting team of the crew is from Zack Snyder's studio, and the company's production department has contributed some manpower. After the money was received, the location scouting, props and other preliminary preparations have begun. Zack Snyder is not a pure newcomer. After so many years of polishing in the advertising circle, he is very clear about all aspects of filming and has a good idea of it. He also notes that Lyman gave him such a large degree of autonomy, but it doesn't mean that he really wants to do that. He was quite grateful for the support from a director like him who had no achievements. This appreciation was also a pressure on him. Tell me, do you have any actors you like? I'll give you some references. After knowing the purpose of the visit, Lyman said with a smile. In fact, the agency has already given a screening list. Some supporting roles are fine, but Zack Snyder really doesn't know which ones to choose for the leading roles. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly suggested, how about letting Eva play the role of the pregnant woman in the movie? Lyman glanced at Zack Snyder and thought that this guy was quite interesting. But it seems that Eva is also quite suitable for that role. Well, she is the wife of the fat wrestler played by Jung Yoo-mi in the original work. She herself has played a similar role in Bad Guys and has acting experience. As for the schedule, it is not a problem. The filming of The Day After Tomorrow is nearing its end, just in time to take over travel to New York. Okay, I'll tell her. But who are you going to let play the leading role? The image of a calm middle-aged man. Zack Snyder carefully recalled the list of actors he had seen and felt that there were several good choices, so he said, Christian Bale, Jake Gyllenhaal, Matthew McConaughey. How about choosing one of these people to play the role? Their worth and image are quite suitable. Jake Gyllenhaal can't do it. In addition to The Day After Tomorrow, he also took on another movie. As for Matthew, are you sure he can play a calm middle-aged man well? This guy's not the Matthew who gradually settled down in the future. He probably just looks more suitable now. If he really wants to play, it's quite difficult to train him. This is not a challenge that Zack Snyder should take on when shooting his first work. Then the only option left is Christian Bale. Has Bale accepted any role recently? He should have a schedule. He is a contracted artist of CAA. His agent told me about the acting appointment last time. After listening to Snyder's explanation, Lyman finally understood his situation. Bale was born as a child star. He was not forced to do this because his family was in the entertainment industry like Jake Gyllenhaal, but because he had no choice. When he was young, his family was poor, his father was idle, his mother worked in a circus, and he had 3 sisters. The economic pressure was huge, and he often spent more than he earned. Bale lived a life of wandering around with his parents, and spent his childhood in the UK, Portugal, the United States, etc. Since the age of 8, he began to be taken to take advertisements and work to support his family. Later, he gradually had more contacts. Because of his young age and advantages, many TV series needed actors like him. This road also became wider, but that was it. Until some time ago, he was still polishing in the independent film circle because he didn't have more opportunities. Moreover, most of the independent films he starred in did not perform well at the box office, and the market response was sparse. Christian Bale continued to take commercial advertisements or guest star in TV series everywhere. It can be said that his net worth is very low. Yes, before he met Christopher Nolan, he rarely had the opportunity to enter the mainstream film industry, let alone be the protagonist. But don't say that. Although he is a little down and out, his image is really suitable, and the key is that he is still at a time when he has not made a fortune. Well, Lyman and Zack Snyder thought about it and asked someone to send an invitation to his agent. We are not saving that little money, right? It's mainly the actor's temperament. Well, we do need to save some filming funds. The special effects shots, costumes and props of this project are really big spenders. In order to show the zombie effects described in the script, several real-life special effects studios, such as Digital Domain, Industrial Light and Magic, Weta, etc., have high quotations, and they all need to join the group to collaborate in the filming from the beginning. And you can't save money in this regard. After all, strictly speaking, these zombies have more shots than the protagonists, and the plot is driven by them. If they are a little worse, it will definitely affect the viewing experience. So, before the movie was filmed, more than 40 million yuan was thrown in, and there was still a small part of the balance that was not paid. There are also the salaries of the filming team, the scene construction and the rental of the venue. After calculating, 70 million is not much. The key is that Lyman did not dare to invest too much. Although he believed in Zack Snyder's solid foundation, there must be a limit to making a movie. The idea of New York trip is good, and Dawn of the Dead was also bought by Lyman. Even Eric Newman, as a decent screenwriter in the industry, arranged the plot with rigorous logic and grasped the key points that Lyman said that day, exploring the human nature under the doomsday. However, making a movie is risky. 70 million is already a very reasonable arrangement, and Lyman does not intend to change it. If he really loses money, this loss will not make him return to the pre-liberation era. Isn't it good to leave a way out? Although there is no popularity, the problem is that zombie movies don't need first-line stars too much. Mila Jovovich was not very popular before she starred in Resident Evil. On the contrary, her identity as a singer is far more famous than her identity as an actor. Speaking of appeal, it is obvious that acting skills are more important to Zack Snyder and Lyman. Whether the climax at the end can move the audience's tears depends on how the actors can empathize and immerse the audience. This is not an easy task. As for Matthew McConaughey, we can only screen him out with embarrassment. He is far from being good enough now. People also need to grow up. Chapter 305 Cultivation. Subscription recommendation. Christian Bale is a very inspiring person. As for his acting career, he spent the first 20 years laying the foundation and playing all kinds of strange roles. The first agency he signed with was ICM, which was the leader of the original Hollywood economic industry before CAA rose completely, with a lot of talents under its management. There are many artists, which also means great competition pressure. Many opportunities were divided up before they even touched his hands. He didn't see any future, and it was when CAA was poaching the most that he jumped to CAA. Logically speaking, CAA had not yet become big and strong at that time, and it had certain film and television resources, so it should have been a good choice. He was at the right age, 23 or 24 years old, and debuted as a child star, so he had a good foundation. What's more, he also had the qualifications to act under Spielberg. If he was trained well, it was not impossible for him to become popular and bring extra income to CAA. Unfortunately, it was useless. CAA, like ICM, didn't like to train newcomers, or in other words, if you don't have the background and conditions, why train you? He is still a man, and his appearance is not very outstanding. In other words, he can't walk the path of an idol artist. Then why give him resources? Just enjoy himself. Okay, he is not taken seriously again. What should he do? Change another one? Christian Bale didn't do that, and was forced to walk the path of a talented actor. As for why he was forced, think about it. Who would be willing to settle down and act for a meager salary at the beginning when he can make a lot of money with his face? Besides, he was short of money, so he took this path. There is no other way. People have to live. The path of a talented actor is to be a talented actor. So, he mixed in various independent film circles, acting in movies that he didn't know whether they could be released, and often went to TV dramas to play because of lack of work, and took extra money to supplement the family income. He has been acting for so many years and has a long experience, but who in the audience knows him? There is no well-known or popular role to support him. Just showing up on the screen will be forgotten in a blink of an eye. This is commonly known as having no popularity. Therefore, although many directors or producers in the industry recognize his ability, he has not fallen to the point of having no roles to play. But that's it. Since 1994, there has been a full decade of silence. It was not until the reboot of Batman that he played the new Bruce Wayne despite many doubts from the outside world. Only with this role did he sweep away the years of decline and his career soared. He also had a close relationship with Christopher Nolan and starred in the movie The Prestige, where they collaborated again. And now, the situation seems to have improved in advance. This invitation was sent through CAA. His agent is not a high-level figure, so he would never let go of such an opportunity. He drove to Christian Bale's home in a hurry. Bale lives in a high-end apartment near Hollywood, and the community environment is relatively guaranteed. As soon as he entered the door, Bale's mother called Bale out. Knowing that it was a movie invitation, she immediately focused her attention. She is not a very materialistic person, but she still hopes that her son can become a big star and make a lot of money. Back then, she took her son into the advertising industry, and it was all opportunities she accompanied him to find in her spare time. What movie is it? Bell was very calm. After all, he thought it was another small crew looking for him to act. It's a new film by Firefly Pictures, directed by Zack Snyder. Bell was a little surprised. He has shot many commercials and knows Zack Snyder. After all, Zack Snyder has made it to the top of the advertising circle. Firefly Pictures? Bell's mother didn't care who was the director, but was very interested in the investors. Is it the Saw? Did they invest in that movie? She suddenly remembered something and asked. Yes, this movie is their new project. That's great. Bell's mother smiled. After the two sat down, she brought a plate of cut fruit and hurriedly made coffee. Bell ate a strawberry and asked, "How is the role? Is there a script?" The agent shook his head. "There is no script, but according to the information I received, Firefly Pictures is said to have invested $70 million in this project, and you are invited to play the leading actor. If it were other actors, they would definitely be surprised to hear that there was such an opportunity, and it was the leading actor, but Bell was not. Over the years, he has participated in too many auditions, and it is not like he has not been rejected before, and this situation is still a common thing." He is still calm. "Then did they tell you when to audition?" "They notified you that it will be tomorrow afternoon, but they didn't say anything specific. They just asked you to go to Firefly Pictures." Bell nodded and said nothing more. After Bell's mother came out, she handed over coffee and entertained her well. After chatting for a while, the agent took the initiative to say goodbye and reminded before leaving, "I will come to pick you up at noon tomorrow. Let's go early." Bell also understood this and waved her hand, which was considered a greeting. Instead, her mother was very active in sending her out of the house. Over the years, the head of the family was unreliable and her own ability was limited. The family's life was supported by the money Christian Bale earned from acting and shooting commercials. Although life gradually improved, she still felt a lot of pressure in her heart. So it was her greatest wish to see her son become a big star. She was very polite to anyone who was beneficial to his career. On the other hand, director Zack was busy preparing for the crew. Lemon had nothing to do, so he followed Joseph to recruit people. The recruitment advertisements were always broadcast, but not many people could really enter the company. It was not that Lemon did not want to train new employees, but that he did not have the conditions. It was better to find experienced people, especially in the administrative department. Joseph had a big head and was too busy every day. Many things were concentrated together, which made him more eager to recruit people. After going to the reception room, a candidate came in not long after. He was a middle-aged man carrying a briefcase. "Hello, sir, this is my resume." Lemon opened it and found that this guy had worked in several film companies whose names he had never heard of, and he seemed to have quite a lot of qualifications. "Excuse me, what position are you in?" Lemon asked. The man said, "I'm here to apply for the position of general manager of the production department." Lemon said speechlessly, "Sorry, I'm already in this position." The man said, "General manager of the marketing department is also fine. We have a candidate. Human resources department? Yes. Damn, he wants to be in management right away, and his resume is not good enough. Where does the confidence come from? What do you want to do as someone's assistant?" The man thought about it and nodded. "Then you can report tomorrow and go through the entry procedures. The department is the administrative department. You will follow the company's specific arrangements. The monthly salary is $6,000. Do you have any objections?" Feeling that he still has experience, Lemon directly threw him to Joseph for arrangement, but the position should start from the bottom, and the monthly salary is at this level. If he is really capable, there is room for advancement. The man gritted his teeth and agreed. "Jonathan William, right? Remember to come to the company tomorrow." Lemon handed over the resume and said, "That's it. Do you have anything else to do?" It was a very obvious signal. Jonathan smiled, politely said goodbye and left. Chapter 306 Guest Appearance. Please subscribe and recommend. It was just another ordinary day, with cars and people coming and going on the road. A Volkswagen pulled over neatly, turned off the engine, and two people got out of it. One of them was carrying a briefcase, looked at the business building in front of him, and found the name and floor of Firefly Pictures from a pile of hanging nameplates. After making sure that he had found the right one, He said to the other person, "It's on the 3rd floor, let's go up." The front desk had already made an appointment, and the staff took them to the reception room. The two looked at each other, looked at the empty scene, and had to find a seat to sit down. These two were naturally Christian Bale, who was invited to play the male lead in Train to New York, and his agent Mike. Then, an assistant brought 2 cups of coffee. The two politely took them, and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Upstairs, in Lyman's office, he and director Zach were meeting with several other people. In the original version of Train to Busan, there was a couple of roles, and 2 popular stars were found to perform, which could not only provide topicality, but also save money. So, he also planned to find 2 singers to play. One of them was a young girl, a new artist that Definition Jam Records was going to promote. The other was a member of Coldplay, who had worked with them before. Their album song Yellow was also selected as a background song by AI, so they were quite familiar with each other. "Ms. Rihanna, is that right? Please take a seat," Lyman said with a smile. She stood there, looking reserved. With a refreshing outfit and a baby face, she looked even more youthful and beautiful at the age of 17. Rihanna glanced at her agent, sat down, and then looked at Lyman and Zach Sneeder curiously. She was just a little girl from an ordinary family who loved singing. It was a very accidental encounter that allowed her to debut and enter the American pop music industry. At that time, a famous music producer in the industry went to a small island in the Caribbean, which was her hometown, for vacation. One of Rihanna's elders took her to meet the producer, who thought she had a good voice and was very talented in singing, so he recommended her to sign a contract with her current music company. It can be said that she is just a pure newcomer in the music industry. She has not even released an album and has only recorded 2 singles. Although the company has decided to invite songs for her, it is not known when she can release her own album. Yesterday, a film company suddenly invited her to make a movie. She excitedly agreed without any consideration. Of course, Lyman didn't know about this. He just sent a request for cooperation to several record companies in the industry at the same time, and finally impressed Definition Jam. The reason why Definition Jam Records was so proactive was to take advantage of the popularity. They really planned to support Rihanna. The $70 million production plus Lyman's own name are important considerations. Perhaps it can also cooperate with the release of the movie to increase Rihanna's screen exposure. This is also the hidden value of successful people. Many people will rush to seek win-win cooperation. "Ms. Rihanna, this is your script." After the other party took it, Lyman said to her agent, "If there is no problem, the shooting of New York trip is expected to start at the end of April and end in mid-July. Does she have any problem with the schedule in the middle of these months?" "No problem, no problem." The agent nodded heavily. As for the salary, considering that she has no acting experience and Ms. Rihanna does not have many roles, we discussed and gave her $15,000. Of course, her filming tasks are not heavy, just because her roles are scattered. $15,000? Rihanna pretended to read the script on the side, but in fact she didn't pay any attention to it at all. Instead, she has been paying attention to the discussion between the agent and Lyman. Hearing this number, she couldn't help but feel a little happy. Alas, a pure newcomer, no matter which circle she is in, the salary is always not high. Even if her music company is willing to spend some resources to cultivate her, but before that, she has not brought any income to the company, and her life is not easy. The agent thought more simply. Anyway, they didn't plan to let Rihanna develop both sides. It didn't matter how much money she got. They simply let Rihanna sign the performance contract. The remaining Coldplay lead singer Chris Martin, although his music career was doing well, it was his first time acting. In addition to novelty, it was novelty. He was not short of money and was more generous. He only paid $20,000 to sign the contract. The 2 original ones were not as popular as the 2 selected now. The cost of the actors can also be further compressed, freeing up filming space, which is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. After several people exchanged contracts, Lyman was in a good mood. He called the assistant again and sent him away politely. After a while, the assistant came to report again, saying that the invited actor had arrived and was waiting in the reception room, and asked Lyman if he wanted to meet him. Lyman nodded. took Zack Snyder, and followed the assistant to the reception room on the 3rd floor. When he saw Christian Bale sitting on the sofa, he saw his agent. The two stood up immediately when they saw someone coming in. Christian Bale looked at the others curiously, while his agent Mike nodded slightly with a smile on his face. "She has a really good temperament." Director Zack leaned over and whispered. He seemed very satisfied. Lemon coughed lightly and said, "First, I guess you also know about the role in the new movie." Then he pointed at Zack Snyder and introduced him. "He is the director of this project." "Hello, Director Zack, I'm Christian Bale, and this is my agent." Christian Bale took the initiative to extend his hand and greeted politely. After shaking hands, Lemon said, "If you want to join the crew, you will need to gain muscle in the next few days. You are too thin." At this time, Christian Bale had just finished filming The Machinist. For that role, a character setting of a severe insomniac, his body shape needed to become skinny. He lost more than 50 pounds in 2 weeks, which was equivalent to 1/3 of his original weight. At that time, he was close to 170 pounds. Even though the filming had been finished for more than a month, he still hadn't recovered completely. So, he looked much thinner than the average middle-aged man of his height. I've been gaining muscle recently, so getting back in shape won't be a problem," Christian Bale said quickly. He cherished this hard-won opportunity, and he was wondering why he was the only one in the reception room, but now it seemed that he had no competitors. Was it luck? He didn't know. Chapter 307 Favor, Subscription Recommendation. Mike felt that he was noticed by God. He stared at Lemon's face and felt that this man was particularly close. He just said that Christian Bale needed to gain muscle. "My God, I don't even know what the script is about, but the investors have already made requirements. What does this mean?" If he is not joking, the role must be determined internally. But he just received a message from CAA yesterday saying that he was invited to audition. This trend seems a bit fast. Could it be that the headquarters has made an effort? If CAA really values them, they would not have wasted so many years. After eliminating 10,000 possibilities, there is only one answer left. The director or investor admires Bale very much, and the role must be determined by the Emperor. At this moment, Mike wanted to thank God for finally opening his eyes. "I weigh 142 kilograms now. After a week, I guarantee that I can gain 170 kilograms. Is that enough?" Christian Bale said confidently, his eyes full of earnestness. Lemon waved his hand, smiling. "Don't worry, if you can gain about 160 pounds in 2 weeks and not look skinny, you'll meet the standard." Bale nodded, looking confident. Lemon didn't think weight control would be a problem for a rubber man like Christian Bale. This guy can gain dozens of pounds a week, and he's very hard on himself. He did it just to star in Vice President. Perhaps this is why he has never been popular. He doesn't take good care of his image, and it's hard for people to remember him when he's fat and thin. Here's the script. Take a look first. Zombie movie. Christian Bale opened the script, looked at the general plot, and was a little surprised. The background of this is interesting. Why, you're not interested in the role? Bale shook his head immediately. It's not that he has any problem with the role, but the style of the subject matter. You know, when he entered the film industry, he mostly received literary and artistic scripts, and most of the roles were abnormal, such as the mentally ill in American Psycho and the insomniac in The Machinist. It's still rare to get such normal roles, which makes him a little strange. During this period, he did try to enter the mainstream film industry. The reputation of Empire of the Sun produced by Spielberg was quite successful. In addition, he also starred in Treasure Island released by Disney. But after the filming, everyone still liked to ask him to play some niche art films, and the audience could not remember him. It seemed that he always had to challenge himself in this life. He was stereotyped from the beginning, and could not get out of it. Christian Bale smiled helplessly. "I don't have much experience in this type of movie. Don't worry, the filming is the director's business. You just need to play the role well. How about it? What do you think?" "Of course I have no problem. When will this movie be filmed?" "It's only in the next 2 weeks. The crew is still scouting and preparing." After saying that, Lemon pointed to his agent Mike, and the few people ran to the side to discuss the salary. As for Bale, he sat down and continued to read the script and figure out his role. Mike fought for it in various ways, and finally he had to pay a salary of $3 million US. Christian Bale has a long career and has played many roles. Although he has no special market appeal, he is not bad in the circle. In fact, it is a question of comparison. After more than 10 years of filming, his net worth is not at the top, but it is still quite suitable for the middle. This guy had received $2 million US in salary 3 years ago. On the contrary, he received $1.5 million for The Machinist some time ago, and personal connections played a big role. But he has always been a celebrity, and this price is worthy of his net worth. The mainstream film industry is more market-oriented and fairer than the independent industry. After negotiating with his agent Mike, Christian Bale was also very satisfied with the number and signed his name on the performance contract. After the contract was processed, Zack Snyder breathed a sigh of relief. If the main actors were not settled, the start date of the crew would definitely be delayed. This was not what he wanted to see, and he really approved of Lyman's casting. At a glance, the decadent feeling of Christian Bale really fits the protagonist in Travel to New York who has been depressed after divorce. He is also a person oppressed by the burden of life, very similar. Time passed quickly, and it was late April. As props, costumes, and venues were negotiated one by one, the set design was also on track. The extras, supporting roles, that is, the zombies and the passengers in the train carriages, were taken by some small actor signed by CAA. In Hollywood, this part of the extras has always been easy to get, and the salary is generally very low. CAA also has to make a profit, so it can be said that they are not doing well. The villain in the play, that is, the selfish railway company executive who killed a whole carriage of people, was also very simple. He directly invited Peter Stormare, a veteran actor with a gloomy face and acting skills, to take over with a salary of $750,000. There is also the role of the wrestler. ICM recommended a candidate, former professional wrestler Dwayne Johnson. This guy's father is a professional wrestler, and he has won the wrestling championship himself. It can be said that he meets the casting requirements very well. He is tall and has a distinctive appearance, and he is not without performance experience. In 2001, he starred in the movie The Scorpion King and was the protagonist. Although his acting skills are not strong, his muscles are real. He is really acting like a wrestler. Moreover, his salary is not high, only $1.1 million US. With his conditions, after only one audition, Zack Snyder decided to cast him. Finally, it is the daughter of the male protagonist. The age is set at about 6 years old. But for actors, you can add a few years on this basis. Generally speaking, people are not assured of such a young actor. The older the actor is, the more reliable he will be during filming. After choosing, a little girl named Dakota Fanning was chosen by Zack Snyder with her excellent audition performance. She was born in 1994 and just turned 10 this year. She also debuted as a child star. She started acting in TV series in the early 2000s. In 2001, she participated in the movie I'm Sam and worked with Sean Penn. And she looks sweet and likable, which is her advantage. After all the roles were selected, it was April 27th. Firefly Pictures officially announced the shooting plan. The New York Daily also released the news. The audience and fans were not too moved. After all, director Zack Snyder didn't have many works, and the actors didn't have many fans. On the contrary, the industry paid a little attention to it. The production cost was $70 million, which is considered to be one of the top second-tier productions. But they just paid some attention to it. Chapter 308, Lionsgate Visits. Please subscribe and recommend. After solving the problem of actors, director Zack hurried to the set to preside over the preparations before filming, and then called a group of leading actors to try on costumes and take maquette photos. As for Lyman, he finally had some free time. He wandered around the company all day and occasionally went to Warner Studios to see the progress of the filming of Hellboy directed by Gyro. By the way, James Wan has already started to be busy with the editing of Saw 2, and Gyro has only filmed half of it. The speed of filming is really touching. Another day, Lyman was interviewing new employees. The staff at the front desk called him. President, there is a boss of a film company at the front desk who wants to see you. Who is it? John Feldmere from Lionsgate. Why did the executive of Lionsgate come to see me? Although Lyman was a little puzzled, he still asked someone to come to his office. This guy's already in his 50s, but he looks very energetic. Speaking of this person, Lyman still admires him. Lionsgate is a film company controlled by Capital. Its founder, Frank Gustav, was originally a Canadian banker. He wanted to make a profit from the Lionsgate industry. He didn't know how to make movies, so he hired John Feldmere, the former president of Columbia Pictures, to manage the company. Over the past few years, Lionsgate has been able to develop so fast, all thanks to this person at the helm. The production and distribution business has also been growing, which undoubtedly proves his talent. However, such an executive of Lionsgate, who has a lot of influence in Hollywood today, suddenly visited him, the boss of a small company, which really made Lyman unable to guess his mind. Lyman shook hands with him enthusiastically and pretended to be surprised. "Mr. John, why didn't you notify me in advance when you came this time? I can also prepare something to entertain the distinguished guest." John Feldmere smiled heartily and said, "Don't be so polite. Didn't we meet at the Paramount celebration party last time? We also said that there is a chance to work together. Is that kind of courtesy in a hypocritical place really taken seriously?" Lyman was wondering what this guy was up to, and when he heard him talking about cooperation, he thought, is he looking for me to cooperate in filming? It was hard to guess at the moment, so Lyman simply pretended to be confused and chatted with him, talking about company management in a roundabout way. After a long time, seeing that Lyman did not respond, John Feldmere simply asked, "Lyman, I heard that your company has finished filming Saw 2? Lyman felt that he had entered the main topic and quickly cheered up and nodded. "Yes, it has been filmed and is in post-editing." John Feldmere asked again, "Excuse me, when do you plan to release it? Do you have a plan?" This question was a bit unruly. Paramount was in charge of the distribution, and the two were in a competitive relationship. As a production company, Lyman should lean towards Paramount. What's more, the specific release schedule is a trade secret. Lyman shook his head and pretended to be at a loss. Paramount is still discussing the release date. "I don't know the details. Have you considered letting Lionsgate distribute it?" I didn't expect this guy to come up with this idea. It seems that the value of Saw has also attracted the attention of Lionsgate. That's right, Lionsgate also developed this series in the previous life, and this company has always been good at developing horror-themed movies. But Lyman still smiled and shook his head and declined. Lionsgate released more than 40 movies last year and 6 at the beginning of this year. The distribution volume is also quite good in the industry. I'm afraid there is no shortage of film sources. Lionsgate's distribution business is indeed quite good, but what's the use of a large distribution volume? They are all European movies or low-cost projects prepared by themselves. 4 months have passed this year, and more than 10 movies have been released, but only 3 of them have box office revenues of over 10 million. There are even several movies that lose money to make a profit and rely on a flying blood. The situation is not optimistic. If the distribution channels were not perfect and there were many ways to make profits, the investors behind the scenes would probably have to withdraw their investment just based on the box office market income. At that time, Lionsgate's financial pressure would be too great. However, John Feldmere would not explain this situation to Lyman, but just smiled and said, "No one will have too few good projects. Besides, Paramount's distribution business is not bad. It is inevitable that there will be times to consider gains and losses. In case the movie schedule is difficult to arrange, some things may be sacrificed. What do you think, Mr. Lyman?" This is of course what Lyman has always been concerned about. After all, outsiders can never compare to his own. Who knows how Paramount will arrange it when the schedules really collide. Otherwise, he would not approach Warner with a close attitude. Seeing that Lyman was hesitant, John Feldmere said, "Lionsgate's conditions are absolutely sincere. As long as you cooperate with us, the release date can be completely decided by you. How about it?" Unfortunately, the Saw project had already been arranged, and Lyman could not change his position at this time. He said bluntly, "I have already signed the distribution terms with Paramount. Sorry, Mr. John. What about overseas? Damn, Lionsgate wants to bypass the domestic market and seek overseas distribution. This is a bit too much. Everyone knows his relationship with Europa Films. Besides, Lionsgate's own overseas distribution has to be handed over to others. Moreover, Lyman had already signed a 3-year distribution agreement with Luc Besson. The overseas market of Firefly Pictures films was handed over to Europa for operation. Lyman also had certain investment rights for the films invested and shot by Europa. Even if Lionsgate offered better conditions, compared with the investment income of Europa, the distribution costs saved in the middle were not enough. This is also the reason why Paramount never made any requests in this regard, because they also knew that it was impossible to be more favorable than Europa Films. Impossible. Lyman said firmly. Obviously, he didn't want to talk anymore, but John Fehmer didn't give up. He added, "Your company hasn't signed a distributor for Hellboy yet, or we can discuss New York trip. This guy really wants to win over Firefly Pictures, and he is willing to offer conditions even for projects that are still being filmed. And it's not impossible to consider." Lyman thought to himself that multiple partners are also multiple ways. In case Paramount and Warner are unreliable, he still needs to countermeasure so as not to lose the initiative all of a sudden. After all, Lionsgate still has strength, and he also knows that Lionsgate is secretly building overseas channels at this stage, so he plans to bypass the 6 major Hollywood companies and distribute overseas business. When it succeeds in sneaking in the future, it will also tear open a gap, and it will inevitably need to win over more film companies and seek more and better sources of films to break through the blockade of the 6 major Hollywood companies. At this time, getting on board first is equivalent to buying an insurance policy in advance. After weighing all the pros and cons, Lyman nodded calmly. "If it's about the release of Hellboy, we can discuss it." Chapter 309, Sponsorship, Subscription Recommendation. When John Fehmer left, his steps were very cool. He didn't look like a man in his 50s at all. When he returned to the company, he immediately called the chairman and reported the meeting to Frank Guster. It was also a recognition of his own contribution. He was the one who helped win over Lyman's Firefly Pictures and establish a preliminary cooperative relationship. It was also because although the company's performance in the past 2 years seemed to be steadily increasing, the crisis had not decreased. As the stalls grew bigger, they needed more excellent film sources. In any case, it was always right to have a good relationship with such an independent production company. Moreover, the industry could actually check the production projects of Firefly Pictures. This could not be concealed at all. It's not that no one came to seek cooperation, and Lionsgate was not the first. But the problem was that when everyone's bids were similar, Lyman was unwilling to change his position and talk about cooperation lightly at the risk of offending Paramount. If it weren't for the fact that Lionsgate was indeed more sincere, they only charged 8% of the channel distribution fee for Hellboy, but the publicity expenses would be shared by the 2 companies, and Lionsgate would pay 60%. The background, strength and backing behind it are the prerequisites for cooperation. Without the latter, no matter how good the former conditions are, Lyman will be concerned about gains and losses and will most likely give up. Although Frank Guster is somewhat unfamiliar with the film industry, he also notes that Firefly Pictures is a company with development potential. With the performance of Saw as a foundation, he is very supportive of John's action to win over. "Now I hear the news, I'm in a good mood. Because once a preliminary cooperative relationship is established, it is definitely easier to deepen it than to deal with it again. Moreover, for Lionsgate, this is completely in line with the business philosophy and policy. It is to win over major independent studios, integrate forces, and develop overseas channels." When John Fehmer was at Columbia, after being acquired by Sony, his overseas business was also done in this way, which can be said to be very experienced. The only difference is that the difficulty has increased. After all, Columbia's strength is much stronger than the current Lionsgate, even when it was acquired by Japanese investors. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Joseph ran to Lyman's office. In the past 2 days, he has been busy trying to get sponsorship for the movie New York trip. As a qualified manager, this kind of thing should of course be left to him. Joseph is quite capable. With the production budget and shooting plan, he went to several companies and got some results. The New York Railway Company is unwilling to pay the sponsorship fee directly, but they are willing to provide us with a scrap train for filming. As for Dyer, because the advertisement you shot for them recently received good response, they are willing to sponsor $500,000, and the requirement is that their clothing must be shown for at least 1 second. There are also several watch companies, and only Omega is willing to invest. The cost is $800,000, and it also requires close-ups. Lemon stood up, took the sponsorship contract, and glanced at it. He waved his hand to let Joseph sit down first, asked his assistant to bring coffee, and then said, "Are there any others? Some companies are still considering it. They are all concerned about the effect of such publicity and afraid that the brand's role will be wasted. It's certainly not easy to get people to invest money, but I have a way. You can try it." Joseph took a sip of coffee and asked, "Do you have any ideas?" Lemon took out the market statistics of the sponsoring brand feedback of Macrolove from the drawer, put it in front of Joseph, and smiled. "Take this to negotiate. Let's say that our New York trip is a movie with a relatively concentrated audience, and most of them are over 16 and under 50 years old, people with strong purchasing power. It is also supervised by me personally, so it will definitely receive a certain amount of attention. Besides, the success of Macrolove should also make those people think more about it. Such a sponsorship, in disguise, helps them advertise in front of so many audiences. Isn't it cost effective? With data as a basis, it will definitely be more conducive to negotiations." Joseph also said, "Okay, I'll talk to them later. Well, all the sponsorship money will be credited to the company's account. You and the relevant action personnel will have a bonus. The details will be reported to the finance department. Sponsorship is a way for production companies to make extra money." Lemon was not stingy and took the initiative to give Joseph and others a reward ranging from 20,000 to 50,000 yuan, and this incentive undoubtedly made Joseph very motivated. Just after drinking coffee, he immediately took the market data of Macrolove to various companies that might have potential for product placement. It took about 2 days, and Coca-Cola also beat Pepsi to come up with a sponsorship fee of $700,000, hoping that the signboards at the train station in the movie would have a full-body poster of Coca-Cola. And Dyer, which was more generous, perhaps tasted the sweetness, and took the initiative to offer a sponsorship fee of $3 million, asking for cooperation, and it was not New York trip, but a long-term contract with Firefly Pictures. The contract stipulates that in the next year, all clothing implant brands that can appear in all film projects produced by Firefly must be Dyer. It is equivalent to a disguised monopoly, excluding all possible competitors. For this reason, Joseph also went back to discuss with Lemon whether to sign the contract. The advantage is, of course, to get a fee of $3 million. The disadvantage, or the possible disadvantage, is that in terms of clothing, except Dyer, they have no choice this year. Even if other sponsors want to invest money, they can't accept it. But Lemon thought about it, and felt that the latter disadvantage would not harm the interests of the company. Because it can be seen that Dyer obviously pays attention to the publicity of this aspect of the market, and is willing to invest in Lemon's company. Even if they sign this contract, they will never be perfunctory. It is a serious sponsorship, and will not make any strange requests. And the time is only 1 year. If the effect is not good, Lemon will have room to choose again. Well, I believe that Dyer made such a plan, and it is estimated that this is also a consideration. At the same time, Christian Bale is also constantly adjusting his body. It took 10 days for his weight to return to 170 pounds to meet the physical needs of the role. Director Zach also constantly sent people to contact the filming location. After all, the title of the film is New York Trip, and it may not be really filmed in New York. In other words, even if the train station scene was to be filmed in New York, it would not be convenient. Only part of the exterior scenes could be filmed, and the interior scenes still needed to be filmed on a set. In addition to the filming location, various props and early lens experiments finally met Zack Snyder's filming needs. Not long after, Eva Green finally finished her role in The Day After Tomorrow and returned to Los Angeles from Canada to join the crew to finalize her makeup. Chapter 310. Filming of New York trip begins. Before the filming of the movie, Benjamin Joseph had raised more than $5 million in sponsorship, which greatly reduced the filming cost. It is very likely that after the filming of the movie, the money actually allocated by Firefly Pictures will not exceed $55 million. By May 2, 2004, the set work had been completed. On a disused railway branch line near Arizona and California, Zack Snyder's first movie in his more than 10 years of filming finally started. Early in the morning, this guy was wearing a short shirt and a hat, and he walked with the wind. The scene was busy, and he was in high spirits, and his voice was much higher than usual. From a distance, you can hear his excited voice cheering for the crew. This guy likes to challenge the difficulty. The first scene of the start was a group scene inside the train carriage. Unlike Lyman, who likes to start shooting with simple shots, this guy's idea is to use a slightly more difficult scene to run in the crew. Dwayne Johnson is really strong. He just made a cameo appearance in a movie some time ago, and his hair has not grown out yet, and he is still bald. This makes him look even more fierce. However, despite his tough appearance, he seems to be a stranger who doesn't want to be approached, but his personality is surprisingly likable. When he saw Lyman, he took the initiative to come over to make friends. Well, this guy also came early in the morning and can say hello to everyone. "Hello, Mr. Lyman." He smiled. Suddenly he looked a bit honest. The entire crew gathered, about 100 people. After several actors and extras changed into specific costumes, they sat in their respective seats in the carriage under the guidance of several stagehands. Before filming the scene inside the train, Lyman asked director Zack to sweep a shot on the car body. Take a picture of the logo of this train company. This train is sponsored by a gold sponsor, so he has to give an explanation. When the attendant comes over later, you can buy a bottle of Coke and a few packs of snacks. Director Zack carefully arranged the tasks and said to another extra, "Just chat with the person next to you. The content is casual, but it should give people a very noisy effect, understand?" The extras nodded. Director Zack also got off the train with satisfaction and stood behind the director's monitor. There was actually nothing to set up in the train. Many of the required internal scenes had been built a few days ago to ensure that it would not be seen from the camera, that it was scrapped. After the actors were ready, Lyman stood to the side of director Zack and watched the actors' performance. Eva had a big belly, which made her look like a mother. Even when she was sitting in her seat, her posture and expression were in place. Dwayne Johnson changed into a colorful dress, and when he stood there, he gave people a feeling that he was not easy to mess with. But his eyes were all on his wife next to him. However, the protagonist of this scene was Christian Bale. He is really a good actor. His eyes are particularly bright, which is the most basic condition for a good actor. At the same time, his tough facial features are matched with a suit and his brows are slightly wrinkled. He looks very worried. This scene is about an office worker played by Bale who takes his daughter to see his ex-wife, but on the train, he encounters a zombie wounding incident that the government has been concealing. A female passenger who has been infected with the virus sneaked in and suddenly became ill. The whole train and all the carriages instantly turned into Sherfield. This is also the starting point of the main line of the whole story. It started with a literary drama. The extras cooperated well, chatting with each other, and just acted out the feeling of taking a train. It was quite smooth. But then it became a little difficult. The female extra who played the first patient often made some small mistakes, resulting in poor effects of the shots, so she had to do it again. It took 3 or 4 shots before she found some feelings. Under the camera, she lay on the ground, twitching all over. The train attendant on the side ran over at the shouts of several passengers, trying to find out the situation. But suddenly, she, who was still twitching just now, twisted her body unnaturally. Don't underestimate this extra. Just this action. Ordinary people can't do it. Or it's because director Zack found a yoga teacher to guest star. The body flexibility, combined with the special effects in the later stage, this pathological process will definitely surprise the audience. The attendant was bitten on the neck by the passenger, who had turned into a zombie and kept shouting for help. Several brave passengers were ready to help, and a few people saw something was wrong, stood up in fear, and retreated to the door. but more people were still sitting in their seats watching the excitement. It was not until the attendants' blood kept flowing that many people reacted. Everyone was scared and wanted to escape, but it was too late. It was not until the afternoon that the first scene of the deceased carriage was completed. In order to appear realistic, the color of the plasma is very pure. It is mixed with specific pigments. The image design of the zombies is even more thoughtful. Whether it is the difficult uncoordinated twisting of the limbs, the makeup, or the running speed and jumping ability that are not ordinary people, they can be distinguished from various versions of zombie movies. Of course, there are also common points among them, such as the corpse spots that imitate human death, and the aggressiveness towards living people. Moreover, in order to achieve the effect, each group actor who plays a zombie needs more than 2 hours of makeup. Those bulging veins, black blood vessels, pupils full of whites, including sharp teeth, and even running postures, have all been carefully designed. Gives people a terrifying visual experience. It looks good, but it's really troublesome. Abraham smiled at Lemon. At this moment, just after shooting a few shots, the actors need to put on makeup again. Sprinkle some blood, or tear the costumes a little to make them look tattered, and the oil paint on the face needs to be repainted. Looking at such a hot situation, Lemon praised, "It takes some energy to shoot a zombie movie, but everyone did a good job, isn't it?" "Yeah." Abraham nodded in response. As a producer, he can see all this intuitively. In order to shoot the scenes, more than one extra was injured in such a long time. In a small carriage, it is necessary for each extra to play very vigorously. What is more needed is the director's scheduling. Fortunately, Zack Snyder has a good foundation. Even if there is an NG, he can quickly find a solution. The entire train carriage scene took more than a week to shoot. When the filming was completed, the representative of the train company came over and took a look. His face immediately turned green. In many places, the seats were all collapsed, and some paint that had not been cleaned up was splashed on the top of the carriage, which looked very scary. This was not a big deal. The most terrifying thing was the doors and windows. They were severely damaged, and many of the glass was directly cracked. However, Lemon also knew that, although this was a sponsorship, it couldn't be too much. He took the initiative to go to the train company and paid a sum of money, and the matter was over. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311. Take a video. Please subscribe and recommend. Dad, where's Mom? When are you going to see her? This weekend. Dad will take a leave to take you there, okay? The little girl took the script and read again. Yeah. I miss Mom. After the scenes on the train ended, Zack Snyder led the team to New York to shoot the exterior scenes, and Lemon took on Christian Bale's family scenes. Such side shots are usually shot by the assistant director, but Zack Snyder wanted Lemon to take over. Anyway, he was bored, so he agreed. At this moment, in a studio at Warner Studios, the little girl Dakota Fanning was rehearsing lines with Christian Bale before filming. Next to her, there was a beautiful woman dressed exquisitely watching. She looked more nervous than Dakota Fanning, who was about to act. She clenched her hands and looked at Christian Bale from time to time to see how he performed. This person was Dakota Fanning's mother. This hot mom who wanted her daughter to become a big star since she was a child also had an outstanding appearance. No wonder she looked so sweet. It turned out that she had a good foundation. After rehearsing the lines, Christian Bale touched Fanning's head, gave her a thumbs up and praised, "Very good, you remembered everything." Fanning was very happy to be praised. Perhaps because they were both child stars, Christian Bale took good care of the little girl on the set. On the contrary, her mother was always only concerned about how her daughter's acting was, and whether she could be accepted by the director. To be honest, her undisguised attitude was very disgusting. However, seeing that Dakota Fanning was such a young child and took on a role, and she was not an amateur, it was hard to say anything. After all, it was someone else's family affair. Moreover, Fanning was very sensible, even a little too mature, and she was not like a child at all in her dealings with others. Anyone who saw her couldn't help but feel a good impression. Bale's family scenes were not many, and they only took 2 days to shoot. Today was the last scene. Get ready, it's time to start shooting. After everyone had rested for a while and the props and camera positions were set up, Lyman reminded with a megaphone. Dakota Fanning sat on the bed, holding a stuffed bear in her arms. This room was full of all kinds of toys, completely built according to the little girl's room, and even too many toys, giving people a feeling that she was very lonely. Then, Christian Bale came back from work outside. He shouted Fanning's name loudly, but got no response. It was not until he came to his daughter's room that he saw her sitting alone at the head of the bed. The clock hanging on the wall showed that the time was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Of course, shooting does not require a specific time. Instead, this scene was shot during the day. Fanning raised her head and looked at Bale. The little girl's expression was a little lonely, making people feel like they wanted to take care of her immediately. Such a daughter is probably something that many people envy and want. However, the fate of this family is destined to be a tragedy. I believe that after the release of the film, seeing Bale jump off the train and Fanning burst into tears, the audience's tear glands may also open. This is also the charm of the dramatic conflict created by the film. Although Dakota Fanning has acted in many plays, most of the time she cannot understand the meaning of emotional use. For example, at this time, she talked about missing her mother's lines, but her expression was still immersed in the loneliness she had just created. She didn't even raise her head, and she forgot what Lyman had taught her in advance to look at Uncle Bill and read the lines. Her mother stood outside the camera next to her, with a look of disappointment. It was as if she was rushing up to teach her how to act. But Lyman didn't care about her, and reminded her that if she disturbed the filming, she would get out of the set. This guy participated in the filming because of his guardian status. He often criticized Fanning, and the little girl's enthusiasm for acting was eliminated. He was completely doing more harm than good. Besides, she was only 10 years old. How much could she understand? What she needed was encouragement, or even teaching her to imitate expressions, but criticism was not the only thing that could work. This shot was naturally not passed. Lyman called the little girl over and asked Belle to stand next to her, and then smiled and said, "Try to look at Uncle Bill and read the lines later. Read softly and slowly, and even touch the teddy bear to talk." The little girl naturally didn't understand the meaning of this arrangement, but she would try her best. She was very good. Next, the filming continued. When Bale asked her if it was time to take a break, Dakota Fanning looked up at Christian Bale and whispered, "Today is my birthday. My mom called me and asked me to stay at her place for a while. Dad, I miss my mom." Bale looked regretful and pounded the door frame. He was so careless that he even forgot his daughter's birthday. Looking at his daughter's eager eyes, it was really hard for him to refuse this request. But his work was really busy, so he negotiated. "I have time next month. I will take you there, okay?" Fanning didn't say anything and fiddled with the stuffed bear. After a while, he said in a lower voice, "I haven't seen my mom for a long time. I miss her very much." Bale frowned, walked to the bed, and touched Fanning's head. After a long time, he agreed. "This weekend, okay, give Dad some time. Go to Mom's place on the weekend?" "Yes, go to Mom's place." Fanning finally smiled and kissed Bale's cheek sweetly. The warmth at this time was completely paving the way for the following plot. Lyman stood behind the director's monitor, watching the camera cut to the screen, and nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, this part is over. Dakota Fanning is still very smart, but it's a pity that she met a very snobbish mother." He smiled at the little girl, and then asked the crew to pack up quickly and go to meet up with Zack Snyder. It doesn't take long for this guy to shoot the outdoor scenes. The trouble is that you have to wait until the early morning to have a chance to shoot. After all, it is a real train station, not built for filming, and it cannot hinder people's daily operations. After communicating with the relevant government departments, only from 4 to 5:30 in the morning can the team shoot a little bit of scenes. So, it took almost 4 days to really finish. After that, Zack took the crew to Canada to shoot the outdoor scenes. That is, the scene where the train can really start, and the train stations along the way are all occupied by zombies, and the group keeps fleeing. At this time, Lemon did not go with him. He had other things to do. A few days ago, Paramount called to discuss the release schedule of Saw 2. After all, James Wan has been working on it for so long. The sequel is finally finished. Chapter 312 Schedule, Subscription Recommendation. The competition in the summer season is very fierce, and our Saw 2 has no advantage at all. In the president's office of Firefly Pictures, Benjamin Joseph, the head of the administrative department, said with a smile, "So, Paramount means that we should wait until the end of summer, the end of June or mid-July, or even later." Lemon looked through some information about the theaters, and didn't say much. For the North American market, the importance of the summer season is naturally self-evident. In particular, the 6 major Hollywood studios will not miss this war. In the first week of May, Universal's Van Helsing will be released. In the second week of May, Troy will hit strongly. In the third week of May, DreamWorks' Shrek 2 will be released. And in the fourth week of May, 20th Century Fox's masterpiece, The Day After Tomorrow, in which Eva also starred, will be released. Just looking at this list, you can see how fierce the competition is. Even though the performance of the previous Saw has been somewhat guaranteed, this is why Paramount still dares not take risks. In terms of funding, the film with the least investment is The Day After Tomorrow, but the filming cost of The Day After Tomorrow is $130 million, and the book cost of Troy, which has the highest investment, is as high as $180 million. In terms of publicity and promotion, the Big Six are even more exhausted. The newspapers are full of news about these new films. Van Helsing was not well received by the film critics, and even ignored the film critics group, and made a big fuss about how hard Hugh Jackman worked for the filming, or hyped up the scandals of the cast and the leading actors. Don't expect the production companies to have any moral integrity these days. They invested so much money, they can't just let it go to waste. Poor Uncle Wolf was exploited. Who made Van Helsing really not shoot well? Universal's Monster Stew series was declared a failure at the beginning. Uncle Wolf's market reputation accumulated by X-Men was also consumed in a blink of an eye. Kate Beckinsale was also unlucky. Some time ago, the role of Escape from the Island, that she had been pursuing for a long time, was finally given to Scarlett Johansson by Explosive Bay. She had gained a good reputation with the role of Lost in Translation. The Van Helsing that she took on later received many negative reviews. As soon as it was released, the girl was really miserable. I don't know if it was because her agent's ability to select films was too poor, and she always got the works that failed in the year. Not to mention the previous Pearl Harbor, at least it was not too bad. She finally recovered with Bad Guys, but she encountered Van Helsing again. Alas, it is estimated that her acting career will fall to the bottom again. This is Hollywood, only market theory. As competitors of this movie, seeing that their peers are not doing well, they are doing a lot of things to take advantage of the situation, constantly hyping up how bad Van Helsing is. But even so, some low-cost movies in the same period still couldn't escape the slaughter. The box office results of the first week of opening also received $31.26 million. However, the audience evaluation was also very poor. Starting from the next week, the box office market continued to decline. Even though Uncle Wolf led the crew to promote and appear on TV shows, he could not save the reputation that was gradually collapsing. Warner Brothers followed closely behind, and it strongly promoted its epic masterpiece Troy. It was also happy to see such a scene, and easily took advantage of Universal's decline to vigorously promote its new film and continue to attack its opponents in words and deeds. Brad Pitt even spoke frankly about the poor performance of Van Helsing in a program. Oh, by the way, Pitt is the leading actor in Troy, and his studio even participated in the investment. Let's not talk about Pitt's character for now, but the charming man personality he has created over the years is still successful. There are many fans. Moreover, he broke the news during the release stage of his competitor's movie. You can tell with your toes that it was Warner Brothers. Movie promotion, sometimes blacking out your opponent is to praise yourself, and the effect is the same. Although Van Helsing is indeed easy to be blackened. Don't mention Pitt, he is very hard at promotion. To be honest, the first line stars at this time are very cooperative with the film promotion. In order to create a gimmick, fake marriages, scandal offensives, high profile selling of misery, injuries during filming, dedication and hard work, everything can be used to make a fuss. Warner is well aware of this. Troy has not yet been released, and it has been revealed that during the filming, several leading actors all suffered from heat stroke and coma, and Pitt fell off his horse and had multiple fractures, but he still insisted on not using a double. Whether this is an exaggeration or not, I will not comment on it first, but not using a double and insisting on real shooting. Are you sure you are serious? If you really work so hard, is he still Pitt? In this regard, Pitt is definitely not as dedicated as Tom Cruise, but you have to compare with others. Generally speaking, Pitt's attitude when filming is still good. On the contrary, his private life has been criticized. Of course, he himself is not picky. What can outsiders say? In comparison, looking at the confrontation between Warner and Universal, and a bunch of film companies that watch the excitement and fan the flames, Paramount, as a distribution giant with many resources, seems to be powerless. During this period, there were no big productions to show off. It was difficult for a giant like Paramount to not participate in the great market during the summer season. But there was no other way. The production capacity was indeed worrying in recent years. The conditions for winning over DreamWorks were good, but they refused to let go and wanted to fight to the death to see if they could regain their momentum. To put it bluntly, Spielberg was still unwilling to have his hard work acquired by other film companies. Although Paramount wanted to supplement its own production department, as long as Spielberg did not give the final nod from the three giants of DreamWorks, DreamWorks would not be acquired by Paramount in the film production business. Shirley Lansing had no choice but to continue to contact DreamWorks while waiting for the situation inside DreamWorks to deteriorate. Lyman also agreed with Paramount's distribution strategy and did not intend to use Saw 2 as cannon fodder in the most intense competition of the summer season. After some discussion, it was decided to release it at the end of October. Go for the Halloween schedule. North American audiences generally have a tradition of watching horror and thriller movies on Halloween, which is very suitable for Saw 2. After finishing the post-production of Saw 2, James Wan ran to the crew of travel to New York as an assistant director and art director. He was bored and wanted to see how Zack Snyder made movies and learn from his experience. After the filming, he also stated that he would no longer be the director of the next sequel. Yes, it is a very boring thing for a director to always make sequels, and there is not much room for improvement. Lemon respects his choice very much. Chapter 313 Brad is suffering. Please subscribe and recommend. There are many Hollywood idols who debuted with their looks or their temperament and body, but there are not many male actors who can really make it to the top. Now, only Leo, Tom Cruise, and Brad Pitt can stand at the top of the pyramid. This standard is based on the reference to the net worth. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Will Smith, and even Johnny Depp, whose net worth skyrocketed with Pirates of the Caribbean, are still a little short of it. The first few have not yet exploded, and Johnny Depp's salary is too easy to increase because of his participation in a series of movies, so it is not really a reference standard. If so, Tom Cruise earned nearly $100 million with Mission Impossible 3. Is it also considered his net worth on weekdays? Since the beginning of the new millennium, the past superstars have given way one after another, and it is indeed these three idol stars who have entered the 20 million club first. As for Leo, because he pursues himself, he has been chasing Oscars in recent years. He has been defeated again and again, and has fallen into a vicious circle, and cannot extricate himself. Tom Cruise is a figure that both Paramount and Warner Brothers have been promoting. He became famous the earliest, and his market performance has proved that he is worthy of being promoted. Brad Pitt is not as good as these two. He was not well known in his early years. If it weren't for his wife Jennifer Aniston relying on her connections and support, Brad Pitt would still be an unknown actor. Of course, if you say that he became popular because of his own strength, then ignore what I said. After all, there are many actors with good foundation, temperament and figure, but they don't have many opportunities to act in movies every year. What's more, Pitt has been quite embarrassed in the past 2 years because of some emotional reasons. His wife Jennifer Aniston has many dissatisfactions with him. There have been several private rumors and news of divorce. However, he himself doesn't want to maintain this relationship, so he just lets it go. But in terms of career, you can't be casual. He finally gained popularity with films such as Seven Deadly Sins and Fight Club, but after that, there were no good works for several years. He even felt very upset because he refused to participate in Fury, which made Pitt, who always put his career first and worked hard for a long time to become famous, a little anxious. What made him even more upset was that Tom Cruise, who was also his biggest competitor and was often compared by the producers and had a highly overlapping role, was doing very well. Not to mention the sequel to Mission Impossible. Bad Guys also had amazing box office. MMP, it was just a move away, and you can't regret it. Lemon, that idiot director, was very petty, and even his request for peace and hope to work together was not taken seriously at all. Anyway, one of them was on the rise, and the other was still standing still, living off the past, and even suspected of going downhill. Therefore, this Troy was made with great hope for Pitt. In order to win the role, he took part of the production risk with the studio's funds to become the leading actor. This is commonly known as bringing money into the group. He wanted to reconsolidate his position through this hottest theme, epic movie. Warner is also a well-established film company. They control the distribution of the works they like, which adds a lot of guarantees. On the evening of May 13th, Troy premiered at the China National Theatre. Lemon was invited by Warner and came. To be more precise, it was Barry Meir who called and invited him personally, so he had to give him face. Otherwise, he really didn't want to see Brad Pitt's hypocritical face. He was not used to it. At this moment, on the grand red carpet, Brad Pitt was deliberately guided by the host and talked about his sad filming experience. "Brad, I heard that it was common for actors to get injured in this filming. Do you have anything to say?" The host's questions were very particular. If they were not communicated in advance, he would have to pay extra. He was really good at heating up the atmosphere. "Didn't you see that the audience on both sides laughed? I don't know if so many people are really interested." After hearing the question, Brad Pitt smiled and said jokingly, "I'm fine. The action scenes are simpler. The main problem is Eric. He really suffered a lot. During the filming, we did all the fighting scenes ourselves. We even discussed privately that we would pay for each other's accidental injuries and use Franklin to comfort the blows we didn't give to each other. $100 per hit." Well, Eric is the Hulk who starred in Lyman's version of the Hulk. His full name is Eric Bana, and he is also the actor who played opposite Pitt in Troy. Speaking of which, because of the disastrous failure of the Hulk, he also needed a success to save his career. At this point, Brad laughed and pointed to Eric Bana next to him. Eric also took over the topic and said with a smile, "Because of this agreement, I earned $900 and the price was some bruises on my body." Brad really didn't hold back. "It hurt a lot when he hit me, but for the effect of the movie, we had to do it." Suddenly, many audiences burst into laughter and applauded. Lemon on the side looked at the crew members who were talking on the stage and shook his head slightly. "Today is really grand. Warner's influence is still amazing. There are many big stars who come to support. Pitt's wife Jennifer, actress Julia Roberts, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Bruce Willis, Angelina Jolie and many more famous film critics and producers in the industry. This series of guests is enough to create enough momentum. And more than 100 media reporters made the interview session luxurious and always kept the topic." Speaking of Warner, its influence and restraint on these media are really unparalleled. Such scenes are rare. It is conceivable that Warner has high expectations for Troy. They also hope that it will be a big hit in the summer season, otherwise it would be impossible to invest so much resources. But even so, when Barry Meir greeted Lemon, there didn't seem to be much joy on his face. Is it possible that their internal market research is not optimistic? Lemon thought to himself. Maybe so, but because of the huge investment of nearly $200 million, it is impossible and unwilling to end it so hastily, so it is better to bite the bullet and continue to support it. Pitt was still very happy, and even more sincerely happy, when he saw Lemon coming to the scene. With a warm smile on his face, he extended his hand in a friendly and polite manner. The two shook hands without saying much. Welcome. Chapter 314 Family and Country Revenge. Subscription recommendation. The director of Troy is Wolfgang Petersen, a German. He may be unfamiliar with the name, but he once directed Das Boot, which was nominated for the Best Director and Best Screenwriter at the Oscars the following year. The film was also included in The Hollywood Reporter as the second of the top 10 most realistic World War II films. At that time, he was 40 years old. After years of being in the crew, he became famous and had more room to display his talents. Troy is his ninth work and his most ambitious one. The subject matter is taken from the most famous battle in the ancient Greek mythology, Homer's epic, the Trojan Horse Siege, which is not lacking in popularity. The popularity of The Lord of the Rings has also brought a wide audience base to similar epic works, which is why Warner is willing to support it. In terms of the casting and investment of the film, it also took a lot of thought. Achilles found Brad Pitt, who has a good figure and a fan base, and the choice is absolutely suitable. The rest is Orlando Bloom, the Elf Prince, a popular young star, with good looks, no problem. Judging from the entire lineup, it is quite suitable. The combination of a group of old actors and traffic stars is a classic. Several female supporting roles are not inferior as vases. That's not all. The screenwriter of Troy's David Benioff, nominated for Best Screenwriter many times, who wrote the script for Spike Lee's 25 Hours, and the beauty director Phelps has also received many Oscar nominations. It can be said that the main creators behind the scenes are basically all the top masters in the industry. Only a platform like Warner can find a team in this way for a project with a fundraising of nearly 200 million yuan. Otherwise, even if they have a good relationship, there is not so much shooting funds together. There are many acquaintances at the scene. Lyman spent more than half an hour to greet them one by one and sit in his seat. The companion is Benjamin Joseph. As the manager of internal affairs of Firefly Pictures, he needs to manage personal connections and the like. He is also good at it. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the movie started. After the brief background introduction at the beginning, the bloody plot officially unfolded. Lyman had heard of the reputation of this movie, but he had not seen it. When he watched it again, his eyes unconsciously glanced at Brad Pitt, who was leading the cast and crew sitting in the front row. He suddenly wanted to know what this guy was thinking at this moment. Would it be embarrassing? At the beginning, Paris, the Trojan prince played by Orlando Bloom, hooked up with Helen, the queen of the king of Sparta. Putting aside the setting, the handsome man and beautiful woman were quite eye-catching, but the subsequent story development became more and more, how to say it, it's nonsense. Or, how did the focus of the filming change from war to love? Could it be that this is not Troy, and the title should be Troy Love Story? Especially after the Greek first warrior, Achilles played by Brad Pitt, came on the stage, it was even more unbearable to watch. On the big screen, the ridiculously simple battlefield and the scene of the two armies facing each other looked more like a child's play. What is even more speechless is that the picture is very thin. When the armies on both sides are pulled apart, not only is there no magnificent effect, but there is also a strong smell of discomfort. It is eye-catching. It is like the Japanese Warring States period. It was supposed to be a national war, but in the end, hundreds of people fought each other, like a fight between villagers. The weapons and equipment seemed to be a joke. My god, anyone who has a little knowledge of the story of the siege of Troy should know that before the clever use of the Trojan horse, the armies of the two sides confronted each other for 10 years, and almost all their belongings were put in it. Lyman barely watched it for more than half an hour, and it was really unbearable. Movies always have to have some climax shots. Not to mention that the scenes of the battles must be portrayed realistically. At least the whole process must be able to convince the audience. Even more awesome operation came. Brad Pitt also contributed a full/naked back in the movie. The producers probably want to impress female fans with this meat selling benefit. Otherwise, why does the setting of the first warrior of Greece rely on this to interpret the character? This operation is simply incomprehensible. You should know that there are specific scenes in Homer's epic that depict Achilles' bravery. The answer is given, and you can't copy it. The plot is not over yet. The general who is regarded as the god of war by the warriors, that is, Hector, the eldest prince of Troy, played by Eric Bana, can't take any moves in the confrontation with Achilles, and he falls instantly. Then we see Brad Pitt with a proud look on his face, holding a weapon, and looking down on the audience. How to say it? Lemon can probably guess that the design of this shot is to set off how awesome Achilles is, and how amazing his force is. But how can such a cool person not take Troy for so long? Is such a force value setting reasonable? It's not enough to fight 1 against 100, but it has to be exaggerated to fight 1 against 1,000 or 10,000. So powerful, but can't take a city? Lemon was dumbfounded and felt that his IQ was insulted. Even if he didn't know much about Homer's epic, he could know that such a plot was simply a disaster. Or maybe the viewer felt the same way. Just when Lemon was so bored that he looked around, he found that some of the audience were leaving. You have to know that this is the premiere, and all the people who come are true fans. If they are not true fans, no one is willing to endure the nagging of 1 or 2 novels and stand in the wind to watch a movie, and the ticket price is very expensive. To sum it up, Troy's a love movie with the skin of an epic battlefield theme, a not so smart plot arrangement, pale and weak character settings, and not enough dog blood. What's more, Homer's epic is very famous, not the kind of vulgar love novels that kill time, and the author has problems with the 3 views. This is even more unacceptable. Moreover, Troy is more than 160 minutes long, and the rhythm is very dragging. At the end, after Hector died in battle, the Trojan horse suddenly appeared. After a long siege, the 2 sides fought for more than 10 years. This trick was used to successfully gain momentum, but this scene seemed very abrupt to Lemon. Although the time was condensed for the sake of film production, the entire grand and magnificent climax did not impress the audience at all, but made people laugh. Achilles laid so much groundwork, but in the end he died at the hands of Paris, the prince who eloped with the queen and caused the war. The culprit who provoked the war turned into a hero? Wonderful, very wonderful. It can be called the finishing touch of this work, and it is a masterpiece that cannot be saved, even if Brad Pitt shows his, but on the big screen. Chapter 315, Another Collapse. Please subscribe and recommend. The premiere carefully prepared for Troy failed. Even though Warner Brothers didn't want to admit this fact and even wanted to cover up the media and newspapers from publishing negative news about the movie, it couldn't do it at all. After all, only Warner Brothers is allowed to kick someone when he's down, but others are not allowed to take advantage of the situation. Universal said, "You're just being naive." Sure enough, the tone of the newspapers the next day changed completely. The soft articles that had previously boasted about how luxurious the main creators of the film were and how difficult the filming process was, were all covered by the movie's viewing reviews, and most of them were merciless. The comprehensive review given by Variety and The Hollywood Reporter was only 52 points, which has completely announced the collapse of the movie's reputation, and even the dream of a double harvest of box office awards like The Lord of the Rings and Ben-Hur has been completely awakened. And with the end of the weekend of the release, the audience feedback also ushered in a large number of bad reviews. The freshness of Rotten Tomatoes is only 54%, with a score of 6 points. In addition, IMDb has more than 7,000 viewers who have rated it, and the score is temporarily maintained at a very embarrassing number of 6.4. You have to know that this is a big production with an investment of nearly 200 million yuan, and such feedback data is undoubtedly a disastrous failure. Even Van Helsing, which was always criticized some time ago, is slightly more glorious than Troy, and is not so miserable. This is definitely the most miserable ending for an epic masterpiece that is eager to achieve a win-win situation. The review of the San Francisco Tribune also pointed out very pointedly, under the name of epic, it adapts the most famous battle of ancient Greece, but it abandons the element of ancient Greek mythology throughout the film, and finally becomes a popular, clumsy, and childish commercial film, or the worst kind. In other words, if you plan to make a commercial love movie from the beginning, you may not be criticized so badly. The real tragedy is that Troy obviously has a good starting point, is very high-end, and feels very superior, but in the end it performs worse than a mediocre popcorn movie with commercial element. Brad Pitt has been very upset these 2 days. Troy opened with nearly 4,000 theaters, which is very strong. On the market, Van Helsing, which has been screened for more than a week, and many low-cost popular movies have been squeezed out of attendance. But the reputation of this screening is too worrying. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Brad Pitt was sitting in the office of Plan B Pictures and said, "Come in." It was Johnson Gray who came in, who was also one of the shareholders of Plan B Pictures. He walked in quickly, and his expression was not very good. "What's the matter?" Pitt asked. "Just got the news that the box office of Troy yesterday was only $16.52 million US. Johnson Gray sat on the sofa with a sad face. "What? The weekend single day box office is only over 16 million. Brad Pitt looked at his shareholder and friend in surprise, thinking that he had heard it wrong. Damn it. For a first-line production like Troy, a weekend single day box office of less than 20 million is already a failure. But what does it mean to only earn more than 16 million? The box office on the first day was still optimistic, but it started to fall off a cliff on the second day. It sounds like a fantasy. What's wrong with this world? Am I still not awake? Just when Brad Pitt was doubting his life infinitely, Johnson Gray still confirmed, "It is indeed this data. I have counted it several times with the theater chain 3,896 theaters, 5 consecutive screenings every day. The scheduling volume during this period is almost all allocated to Troy, and our attendance rate has always been low, and the number of moviegoers is declining." As he said, Gray put several more newspapers he bought on the desk. Brad Pitt read them one by one without giving up, but his face became even uglier. Entertainment Weekly even conducted a random sampling survey of the audience of Troy. The audience's responses to the film were very unremarkable, highlighting one truth. Some said it was disappointing and boring. Some said it was far below expectations and the movie felt like a mess, and I had no idea what it was about. Most of the criticism was directed at the lead actor, Brad Pitt. "There's nothing we can do about it, since you're the most famous." Compared to Pitt's God of War, Eric Bana's Hector was a good foil and actually quite good. The result of all the actors participating in the film was a terrible movie, with Pitt being the worst performer. We can't see the big scenes, we can't experience the thrilling war, and we can't even see the heroes. I don't know what the movie wants to show us. Is it to see the bloody elopement of Helen and Paris? If so, it might be pretty good. At least, these two people are quite compatible. Pitt is not suitable for playing Achilles at all. From his figure to his performance, the characterization is always very bad. There is no similarity at all, and there is no heroic charm. There are many negative comments. Even if a small number of brain-dead fans give very high positive feedback to Pitt's characterization, it can't cover up the complaints or anger and disappointment of the majority of people. Under the influence of such super high expectations, the more the finished product of the movie fails to meet expectations, the more likely it is to be criticized. It's a normal phenomenon. For example, bad movies are produced every year, but the most criticized ones are always the works of directors or stars who have achieved results. Bad movies are bad, but first of all, people have to watch them, right? The high profile during the publicity period is more like a sharp blade stabbing at oneself. Originally, it was the most anticipated film of this summer. It is no exaggeration to say that many viewers' expectations for Troy have gone through the roof. After a long period of preparation, topics and gossips have emerged one after another. While seducing everyone's curiosity, it not only created conditions for the film to achieve good results, but also faced the danger of triggering a crisis of trust. Unfortunately, Troy only achieved the latter. Warner originally gave a box office forecast of 95 million in the first week at the media conference. At that time, many media felt that Warner was too conservative. With an investment of 200 million, not to mention breaking 100 million in 3 days like Spider-Man, a week would not be considered high to get a box office of 100 million, and it would not be impossible to even try to hit the box office record. But who would have thought that it was not that Warner was conservative, but that they did not have much confidence in themselves. The single day box office of more than 16 million also proved that they were right, and it was probably still inflated. With this performance and the collapsed reputation, it was questionable whether it could exceed 70 million in the first week. Like Van Helsing, Troy also went from heaven to hell in an instant, or even worse. After all, the investment was not as big as Troy. Both were flops, but one was obviously a bigger flops. Chapter 316 Powerless, Subscription Recommendation. The atmosphere in the huge office was extremely depressing. The May sun was already scorching hot, and it hit me through the window, but I couldn't feel a trace of warmth. Brad Pitt sat blankly in his office chair, smoking silently, his eyes still fixed on those newspapers, as if these newspapers had infinite appeal, and the criticism and ridicule were like swords and knives through the text, cutting flesh and blood. It made people numb and powerless. Johnson Gray, who was sitting on the sofa opposite, was also smoking, but his eyes were looking at the floor. Neither of them spoke, as if they didn't want to break the silence. What about Warner? What are they going to do? In the end, Brad Pitt spoke first. I don't know, but if they wanted to come forward, they would have intervened long ago. Johnson Gray exhaled a puff of smoke, still calm. In this situation, we should think about what to do ourselves. What to do? You ask me. Pitt squinted his eyes, very tired. Yes, even the media has spoken. What can we do? You can't just cover the lid and stop people from talking. If the film has a good idea, it can also boast about the depth of the plot and try to win awards. But the problem is that even the critics think it is a bad movie and the audience is not satisfied. Under the premise that neither side is pleased, it is really helpless. It is definitely impossible to recover the investment in Troy. Let's think about investing in that new project. Johnson Gray suggested. It is said that Plan B Pictures still has certain strength in the circle. As for the new project mentioned by Gray, it is the script that director Tim Burton took a fancy to at the beginning of the year, and Pitt and Tim Burton have a good personal relationship, which is why they are involved. In addition, the losses of Troy must be recovered. Since this movie has failed, it is also very feasible to find a new profitable project. Isn't that script too niche? Although I recognize Tim Burton's directing ability, I can't afford a second failure, Pitt said with some concern. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a bit niche. After all, it is adapted from a children's book. However, Tim Burton has a lot of ideas, and the plot design is very innovative and not childish. What about Johnny Depp? What about his salary? Brad Pitt said again. Well, Tim Burton's favorite actor is Johnny Depp. They have worked together 3 times, including Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands and Guillotine. This time, Tim Burton's first choice for actor in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is still Johnny Depp. If it were in the past, Plan B Pictures would definitely not have any doubts, because Johnny Depp's worth was not high, but since he starred in Pirates of the Caribbean and played the most popular captain, his salary has skyrocketed. It's embarrassing to ask for less than 10 million or several million. This really represents a big risk, and it also means that the shooting budget of the project has increased significantly. How about we talk about it first? Let him take more share and less salary. Because the profit prospects of each film project are difficult to accurately estimate. In order to avoid risks during filming, this suggestion is a relatively common operation in the industry. The general meaning is that if the box office of the movie is good, the main creators will get more share afterwards. If the movie is just average, then this condition will be automatically invalidated. Will he agree? I heard a few days ago that he signed 3 acting contracts with Warner, and the salary increase is still a step-by-step increase. As long as the sequel of Pirates of the Caribbean can maintain good performance, his development momentum will be even stronger. Johnny Depp may not take risks and bet with us on the profit margin of the movie. Johnson Gray said, let Tim Burton invite him out and let's meet. Anyway, the filming of Pirates of the Caribbean 2 will be next year. With so much time left, he will have to take the role. Let's be sincere and test the waters first. What about distribution? Plan B Pictures, like ordinary star or director studios, did not establish distribution channels at all. Let's go to Warner. Johnson Gray analyzed again. The failure of Troy has affected the relationship between our 2 companies. We need a more ideal cooperation to make up for it. Brad Pitt was silent. Of course he knew this truth, but he was still a little unhappy. Let's just do it. Brad Pitt nodded. He didn't have the strength to turn against Warner, and even if he was unhappy, he could only bear it temporarily. He was looking forward to the new project Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to save something for him. Now, he has lost both his reputation and his profit due to poor market feedback. Both are gone. Thinking back to when Troy was just being prepared, weren't everyone very confident? Why did it suddenly go wrong? Brad Pitt couldn't figure it out. but he had to accept the reality. The reality is that the better the fantasy was before, the more miserable it is now. Mr. Gray, the TV station you scheduled an interview with is here. When the two were upset and thinking about how to solve the dilemma, an assistant knocked on the door and reminded them. Got it. Take him to the reception room first. Johnson Gray ordered, extinguished his cigarette, and sighed. Let's go. Let's see if we can get you out of this, and put the blame on the director. Someone always has to take the blame for the failure of a movie. Since he has to take the blame anyway, why can't the director take the biggest blame? This is also Johnson Gray's little idea. After all, the entire Plan B Pictures, strictly speaking, is operating with Pitt's influence. If the boss falls, the effect of existence is not great. I don't want to go. Pitt sat in a chair, still not out of the matter. Go. We have to do this. Let the TV station report it. At least it can save some popularity for those moviegoers. It's like this. Can it still be effective? Brad Pitt said self-deprecatingly. Even if there is nothing, you still have to explain it. Once something is contaminated, it would be really foolish not to try to distance yourself from it. Johnson Gray said unhappily. I have already greeted the people from the TV station. You just need to talk to them, as they say. The constant scolding on the internet, in newspapers and among fans in private is very unfavorable for an idol actor like Brad Pitt. If he doesn't find a way to minimize this negative impact, Pitt's acting career will be ruined. It is indeed very serious. Brad Pitt looked at Gray for a while and said nothing, or all his words turned into a sigh. Alas. Chapter 317. Shirking. Subscription recommendation. In the reception room, several people sat in a relaxed manner. The reporter who came to interview was from the WBTV network under Warner Brothers. In the past, the two sides had greeted each other many times and had a good relationship. Moreover, he had given a lot of red envelopes and travel expenses. After all, he was one of them. The assistant poured a few cups of coffee and left. The cameraman was fiddling with the machine. When it was almost time, the interview officially began. This reporter worked very hard, and he didn't talk nonsense or set traps. The key was that he asked the right questions. One couldn't help but admire him. That's it. Professional. It's worth the money. Now everyone has a lot of bad reviews about this movie, and many people even criticize your performance in the role. What do you think about this? Brad Pitt sat upright and said, this is a rather inappropriate statement. If the audience doesn't buy into a movie, or it's not filmed to their satisfaction, there must be many reasons for it. We can't just blame a certain actor. Troy was completed step by step according to the normal preparation procedures. The idea, script, and shooting team were first, and the actors were selected last. I joined the crew and started shooting within less than a week. Even the script given to me was only about the scenes of my role. I didn't even know what the finished film would be like. The reporter followed the topic and asked, so, the actors' overall level of participation in this is the lowest? Yes, like me. After filming this movie, I also participated in other works, and they didn't notify me until they were about to be released. The premiere was also the first time I knew the entire plot. What did you think when you were watching it? I thought it was terrible. That's not me. Are you not satisfied with your own performance? A little bit, but more importantly, the scenes I played felt a bit abrupt, which is why the audience felt that I was not immersed in the role. In the end, all the hints were all the director's fault. The actors were not to blame. Even the early publicity was to fulfill the contract, not to actively exaggerate the wonderfulness of the movie. It was not a lie, because he himself didn't know whether the movie was good or not. The two of them were like a rehearsal, asking and answering each other, cooperating tacitly. At the end, the reporter also made a speech about the rigidity and assembly line of Hollywood production mode, and gave his own expectations for the future prospects of the film market, and then the camera was turned off. Several people shook hands, and exchanged a few polite words. Johnson Gray was also very considerate, and handed over another award, saying that it was for the travel expenses and food, and lodging expenses for coming from afar. The TV station staff took it, and were very satisfied. After being personally sent to the parking lot, they patted their chests, and guaranteed that this interview would be broadcast on TV tomorrow. After seeing them off, Brad Pitt and Gray returned to the office. They continued to discuss the plan. The focus of public opinion is obviously not so easy to shift. Since the director needs to take the blame, it is best for Warner to cooperate privately. Of course, they are definitely willing to do so. Anyway, there must be a sacrifice for this project, so why can't it be director Wolfgang Peterson? And there are several advantages to doing so. First, it is naturally to divert attention. Not only Brad Pitt needs a good public opinion environment, but Warner also needs it. Second, it is also because director Peterson is German and has a shallow foundation in Hollywood. Even if he is thrown dirty water, he can't do anything. If he is a big director, perhaps the actor in the play should take the blame, but unfortunately, he is not. Third, the agency also needs such a suitable scapegoat. CAA, ICM, etc. have actors involved in this movie. To put it bluntly, such an operation will be more convenient for Warner, reduce losses, and can also use the power of multiple parties to suppress it together. It is very realistic, isn't it? As for whether doing so will directly cut off the director's future, it is not within the consideration of Brad Pitt and Warner. As the saying goes, it is better to die than to die. Who caused this movie to fail? If you don't take responsibility, who will? Anyway, Warner will definitely not cooperate with such a tainted director for the second time. Pitt is different, he can still be used. Thinking about it this way, things are very clear. Warner said that they want you to participate in a program. In a mansion in Beverly Hills, an agent of ICM looked at the frowning Orlando Bloom and said, "The failure of Troy is not only a big loss for Brad Pitt, but also the risk of Orlando Bloom's acting career being interrupted. You know, he doesn't have as many works as Pitt. He just gained a little reputation with the role of the Elf Prince in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the role of the blacksmith in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's really terrible for a new actor to suffer such a blow. What makes this young man even more uncomfortable is the changes in everything around him. A few weeks ago, he was still the most popular newcomer of ICM. Even the senior people of the agency were happy to greet him, select movies for him, and invest resources in operation. During that period, he could get a lot of project plans from his agent every day and refer to which role to compete for. In the MTV Movie Awards not long ago, he won the Most Breakthrough Newcomer Award by relying on the company's connections. This start should have been smooth. But as the negative impact of Troy began to take effect, he was criticized by many people as one of the most important male supporting actors in it. In just a few days, the company's attitude changed drastically. If he hadn't been saved, he might have been abandoned by the Capitol and sunk to the bottom like those actors who had achievements and suddenly fell silent. This is a very terrible result, and no one is willing to accept it. So, after hearing what his agent said, Orlando Bloom asked, "When?" "Tomorrow. You will listen to my arrangements at that time." Orlando Bloom adjusted his sitting posture unnaturally. He felt that his agent had not been so polite to him in the past few days. This kind of indicative words made him quite uncomfortable. And after the theater chain reduced the number of screenings of Troy, its decline became more and more obvious. The single-day box office dropped again from over 15 million to just over 1,000. It was even worse on weekdays, not even 10 million. For a first-tier blockbuster production, this could happen only because the reputation of the film has been ruined. In addition, Warner, as the distributor, is very cunning. Seeing that the situation was not right, even the publicity expenses were cut by half. Without publicity and audience praise, it would be a miracle if the film could get better. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 What is Upstream? Subscription recommendation. May 18th was the 5th day of the release of Troy. Robert Dennis walked into the company with a blank expression on his face. He nodded coldly to the employees on both sides who greeted him, and said nothing. As one of the senior executives of Warner's distribution department, he could not escape the responsibility for the failure of Troy. He pushed the door, and walked into the company's conference room. Barry Meir was sitting at the head of the conference table. He did not seem to be affected by the bad news in recent days. He still looked calm and composed. He smiled and raised his hand to signal him to sit down. President Roberts Dennis was about to speak, but was interrupted by Berrymere. Now that everyone is here, let's talk. In the conference room, in addition to these two people, there were several other department executives. We will no longer invest in publicity funds. Now all major newspapers and media are reporting negative news about the movie. Well, at the beginning, they agreed to invest $50 million for publicity and distribution, and spent more than $20 million in the early stage. But seeing that the situation was not right, the remaining $30 million would naturally not be invested to recover the loss in time. That is why the media is so one-sided. Warner itself has given up. What about the public opinion diversion? Pitt and CAA are more anxious than us. They have already taken action. Another executive reported, well, since we have already failed this time, we can't lose too much profit. Berrymere continued, for overseas, hurry up to release it, and the offline market as well. The longer the delay, the worse the impact. Don't worry, our people are already making arrangements. That's it. And in addition, notify Lyman that the project of $1 Million Baby also needs to be planned. Cannes. Yes. Berrymere had already planned. First participate in a few film festivals to accumulate word of mouth, and then preview in North America at the end of December, and successfully strive for the momentum of the awards season, compete for the Oscars, and finally release it on a large scale. This is also a very common operating method in the industry. As for why Cannes was chosen, it is also because of Lyman's identity. If he was not French, he might have chosen the Venice Film Festival. Several people discussed the meeting again and then dispersed. For a huge platform like Warner, they are also very experienced in dealing with project failures. Moreover, although they are the distributors of Troy, the sources of funds for the producers are diverse. The money from Wall Street investment banks, foundations, and even studios such as Plan B Pictures is the biggest. In terms of losses, they are also the biggest, and Warner has only paid channels and some time and energy. Of course, the failure of the originally conceived project must have an impact, but it is not as serious as imagined. Distribution, as the upstream of the entire film industry, cannot be summarized so simply. Take this incident as an example. No matter how much the final box office is, and how much loss is compared to the investment in the project, Warner's losses must be compensated first, and then other investors. This is a distribution condition that is truly written into the distribution terms. Even the project that Lyman cooperated with Paramount and Europa is the same. If the box office is 100 million, 40 million will be distributed to the theaters, and the remaining 60 million will be calculated first for the distributor, and finally for the producer. This is why sometimes the project is not profitable on the surface, but in fact the distributor is still not losing money. Of course, if you think about it from another angle, the channel itself is an investment of resources. If you don't make money or even lose a little, it's a big loss from the perspective of the distributor. After all, the schedule is limited. If you are given this movie, other movies will have to be postponed. You can't make a lot of money from the movies with confirmed schedules. The waste of postponed movies or the schedule itself should also be calculated. The same is true for Troy. On the surface, Warner tried its best to reduce investment after the situation was difficult to save, and even stopped spending the promised follow-up publicity funds. As everyone knows, this is also a helpless method. The summer season is such a profitable market, but it can't get much box office results. Warner itself is also very sad. But things have happened, and this failure is clearly not the most affected by Warner. Yes, channels are also resources, but compared with the producers who lost more, and the investors who are crying, and then look at Warner, it seems to be okay. They bear the smallest production risk. If the situation is really bleak, they will get the largest compensation, which is also overbearing. Unfortunately, the operating rules of Hollywood are like this. Especially for Warner, a film and television giant that is used to taking risks and making money for everyone. It is so normal that it can't be more normal. Even for its own projects, Warner rarely takes the risk of production independently. Why? Is there not enough liquidity? In fact, for a film and television company like Warner, never losing money is more important than making a big profit. It needs to maintain this situation and even come up with the best annual financial report to stabilize the hearts of shareholders and even maintain the stability of the stock market. Therefore, as early as after the release of the movie, through the collection of screening data and the forecast of the audience market prospects, they withdrew faster than anyone else after knowing that it was impossible. They gave up first. Even the object of taking the blame and the focus of diverting attention were initiated by others, and they just went with the flow. Otherwise, it doesn't matter who bears the responsibility, actors and directors, as long as they dilute Warner's presence and achieve their goals. Sure enough, this time the actors united to let the director be the focus. Each has his own calculations, but Warner is very stable. In the entertainment industry, stars are different from directors. For someone who still wants to make a living by impression points, this kind of bad reputation is really unacceptable. CAA and other agencies have no choice. If they can successfully minimize the negative impact, who would be willing to spend money to divert attention? Do they really think that money comes from the wind? But if they don't do this, the acting careers of leading actors such as Brad Pitt and Orlando Bloom will suffer greater losses. Moreover, they are idol stars and cannot prove themselves with acting skills like powerful actors, which means that they will lose more favor from the audience. Temporary investment can only comfort oneself by saying that more can be recovered in the future. Of course, if you really want to give up, there is no value in training, and the agency is not a charity. Don't you see that Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie and others have more black materials, such as religious issues, cheating issues, mistresses taking over, and touching things that should not be touched? If it is put on ordinary actors, these are all fatal or even directly ruin the career of actors. They have been suppressed and whitewashed continuously. For example, Angelina Jolie was criticized in the later period, and then she turned to the charity route of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. She sent supplies to the Middle East and called for anti-violence and anti-war. Do you think people will continue to focus on her scandals? There will always be people who are unaware and will forget. Chapter 319, The Sacrifice, Subscription Recommendation. The agencies, including CAA, acted very quickly. First, after Brad Pitt's column was broadcast on TV, several other leading actors also participated in some talk shows or night variety shows. Basically, they did the same as Pitt, trying their best to distance themselves from the issue and put the blame on director Wolfgang Petersen. The word should be vague and not so blunt, which is conducive to the audience's spontaneous association. Even some true fans have long wanted to whitewash their idols, but they have no topic to break through. Now they have a reason to do so, and they have a good way out. Just like a certain movie, which failed miserably in the market, but many fans said, my idol is so and so, his performance is so and so good, and there is a lot of room for improvement compared to before. In short, the failure of the movie has nothing to do with my idol, so you can't criticize him. In comparison, it is exactly the same. Even the whitewashing procedures are so similar. It can be seen that the entertainment industry in the world is really the same. At a glance, it is bright and beautiful, but a closer look reveals that it is full of smoke and miasma. This is a trick. Seeing the actors speak out, coupled with the fact that Pitt and Orlando Bloom are both very good looking, there are signs that the wind direction has changed. But this is not enough, and it is just the beginning. Suddenly, although some mainstream newspapers are still judging and mocking the failure of Troy, they gradually put their sights on the director. Some say that he changed the script temporarily, some say that he quarreled with the assistant director during the filming. In short, how did the harmonious crew scene at the beginning of the release turn into all kinds of discord? Isn't this a slap in the face? But this is not important. What is important is that all the disadvantages originally about the actors have been transferred to the director, and the actions are quite neat. It's just a pity for director Wolfgang Petersen. He is really pitiful. It would be nonsense to say that he does not take responsibility for the failure of Troy. But such a one-sided situation is obviously too cold. People have worked hard for more than 20 years and made 7 or 8 pretty good movies. Just this time, all the efforts were completely denied. Moreover, if we really want to discuss it in detail, how much influence can he, a director, have? This is Hollywood. The reason is clear to everyone. First, the industry adheres to the producer-centered system. The script is written by the screenwriter. The producer has to intervene in where to shoot and where not to shoot. It is not a work that he can shoot at will. Secondly, the most important post-production editing is not decided by the director. The director does not have much say in these two most critical points of film creation. Can it really be said that he bears the main responsibility? This is the case with Wolfgang Petersen. He felt very wronged. He obviously interfered with this, and that during the filming. But why did he blame it all when it failed? How miserable it is. It's a pity. Who made you a director? Just like Wu Beige ran back to the mainland in disgrace, Lyman could only take over small budget art films after failing in The Hulk. In many cases, the director is the first to be sacrificed. There is neither reason nor fairness in this. After all, who cares about friendship when everything fails? The office of Plan B Pictures. Johnson Gray reported the latest situation. Now the criticism from the media and movie fans is focused on the behind-the-scenes creators such as Wolfgang Petersen. Brad Pitt was not very happy to learn about this result, because no matter what, he needs to avoid the limelight for the next few days and appear in the public eye as little as possible. Besides, his career has indeed been affected. The pace of climbing up has also slowed down. Did those people say anything? Gray shook his head. Even if Wolfgang Petersen accepts media interviews, this kind of public opinion cannot be reversed. Besides, they have no channels to speak out. Who would care about what a director says? Well, it's very realistic. After this incident, director Petersen's future is over. Unless he can return to the public eye with his works like Lyman. But before that, what he needs more is to find a suitable project. Because many film companies will list such directors as uncooperative objects. After all, if you don't pursue successful people, do you pursue losers? That doesn't make sense. This is exactly the case. For several years afterwards, Wolfgang Petersen returned to his native Germany without any output. If it weren't for Akiva Goldsman, he wrote A Beautiful Mind, a well-known producer and screenwriter in the industry, who recommended him again, he would have had a hard time returning to Hollywood in his lifetime. And the Poseidon he took over was just a medium-sized production with a small investment. In order to save money, most of the actors were of low qualifications. As for why it is difficult for directors to have a voice, it is because the media power is controlled by the big six in Hollywood. Since Warner and the agency have unified their caliber, is there any mistake? In just a few days, the director Wolfgang Petersen was the most tortured. Everyone was saving themselves, protecting themselves, but he couldn't save himself. Looking at the inexplicable media attacks, thinking about all the good things before the release, the actor's flattery, Warner's friendly attitude, suddenly became a bubble. He didn't fail to find Warner's senior management, but they didn't like him at all. He made crazy calls during those days. The film companies and investors who had wanted to cooperate with him also changed their tone. The perfunctory words of these people made him feel exhausted physically and mentally. The promise conditions in the contract had long been invalidated. Since the film was destined to fail, he not only could not get the promised box office rewards, but even part of the subsequent remuneration was much more harsh. But he had no way to appeal. Because this was all stipulated in the contract, in black and white, and it was a filming contract signed by him personally. Why should a remuneration be paid in 2 or even more installments? It is for today's situation. For the producers, they are not at an advantage compared with the distributors, but they are very powerful compared to the directors and screenwriters who have even less say. Many times, the inequality comes step by step like this. The distributors try to recover the losses from the producers, and the producers also try to get some compensation from other places. In the final analysis, failure is not an option. If it succeeds, everyone will make money, and everyone will be willing to share some small favors. Wolfgang Petersen gave up. After another fruitless negotiation, facing this most realistic circle, he had no choice but to leave in disgrace. Hollywood is still the same Hollywood. It has never changed. Chapter 320 Daily Life. Subscription recommendation. New York trip is still being filmed, and the progress is neither fast nor slow. Saw 2 has not been released yet. Let's wait and see. After James Wan went to the crew of New York trip, he was quite happy. Perhaps this subject matter aroused his desire to create, and he followed Zack Snyder every day to perfect the expression of the novel image of zombies. Not so one-sided, more accurate, and even beyond the types of other zombie movies in the past. This is what they want to do. As for Gyro, he himself has also completed the filming of Hellboy and is now entering the post-editing stage. To be honest, for a filmmaker like Lyman who doesn't like to interfere with the creation and gives the director enough space for filming, Gyro is very satisfied. In that way, he can edit his various imaginative shots into his own movies, so he is also very happy. The monster image he created is always different from that of other directors. Perhaps it is because he always likes to give monsters some humanity and even strong humanistic thinking, which is not so thin. Everyone has something to do, and after a few days of leisure, Lyman also ushered in a task. In the screening room of Warner's headquarters building, Barry Meir was watching the edited feature film of $1 Million Baby with a group of executives. After watching it, they all thought it was of good quality and very interesting. The problem, of course, is the distribution. Warner's idea is the same as before, and it plans to premiere in Cannes first to build up its reputation. For a drama film like $1 Million Baby, it is the safest and most profitable route to win awards, get nominations, and then release it publicly to make money with word of mouth. Moreover, Warner is very familiar with the Cannes jury this year. The chairman is still Quentin Tarantino. By the way, Cannes will change the jury every year, but no matter how it changes, its members are always mostly from the United States and France. I don't know if this is an alternative distribution of power and compromise. After all, among the 3 major international film festivals, Cannes is the most active in introducing Hollywood's influence. It has also successfully established its own brand, faintly surpassing Berlin and Venice. Whether it is the volume of transactions, the capacity of the platform, or who has a better reputation, Cannes is now respected. But it seems that Hollywood is gradually turning Cannes into another glorious place of fame and fortune. We don't know who influences whom more. There is no need to know. For Lyman, it is definitely more important to pay attention to his own affairs than others. There is no point in thinking so much. After chatting for a while, Barry Meir smiled and said, "After participating in the Cannes exhibition, we will compete for the Oscars at the end of the year. All these public relations, contacting film critics and building momentum, we will arrange them for Warner. Boy, I support you so much, and you still don't remember my kindness?" Barry Meir thought a lot. Anyway, the benefit of this movie lies in winning awards and reputation. Warner's connections in this regard have always been good. If it is really successful, it can not only earn real market results, but also properly show Warner's heritage and better win over Lyman. It is really killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This is why he chose such a project, to cooperate with Lyman and test the waters. Firstly, the investment is not high, so if you really make a mistake, the loss is not big. Secondly, if you can tell such a story well, you can also get a partial understanding of his directing ability and what he is like in the process of cooperation. So, between filmmakers, directors, and distribution companies, it is all about scheming. Calculations are made here and there. The gains and losses and returns are calculated clearly. Of course, Lyman is also quite thorough. Although I don't know what Barry Meir is up to, at least Warner's intention to win him over is very clear. Mr. Meir, don't be polite with me. You are a capable director, and Warner likes to cooperate with capable people. After this movie is over, I wonder if there will be a chance to cooperate again. There will be this opportunity. Lyman smiled and said. Soon, such courtesy ended, and the film viewing party was dispersed. Lyman greeted everyone and took the initiative to leave. After leaving the screening room, he walked towards the elevator, pressed the floor, and the elevator door was about to close. Suddenly, 2 men came in. One of them was wearing a suit and holding a briefcase. The other was dressed casually, but wearing a pair of sunglasses. The elevator started and went down. The one wearing sunglasses suddenly took them off and said in surprise, "Director Lyman, you are Jim Carrey?" The 2 were not familiar with each other. After saying hello, they didn't know how to start for a moment. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Finally, it was Lyman who asked, "What are you doing here? Auditioning for a movie? Haha, did it go well?" No. How can I respond to this? Lemon found out that Jim Carrey is completely different from the image he shows on the screen in private. He is not talkative, not very cheerful, and even a little quiet. For an unfamiliar actor, the only way to get to know him is through his works. It's a pity that movies are said to be a true artistic presentation, but they are not real. The elevator was still going down. In the narrow space, several people looked at each other. They seemed to be thinking about what to say to break the deadlock. Besides, the man next to him might be Jim Carrey's agent or assistant. Jim Carrey kept looking at him, as if he wanted him to speak first. Ding. They arrived at the first floor and the elevator door opened. Lemon was about to go out when the man, whose identity he didn't know, finally said, "Director Lemon, are you free now?" Lemon had heard this kind of invitation many times. Since he had a strong ability to harvest box office and had never failed, many people in the industry liked to get close to him. They either talked about cooperation directly or made friends and waited for future cooperation. Lemon could also vaguely guess what the two people wanted. What could an actor want? But he still turned around and looked at Jim Carrey. After thinking carefully, he nodded. "I have time." On the way, when chatting, Lemon knew that the person accompanying Jim Carrey was Utah's agent Sangle. As for the fact that they came to Warner headquarters today, they were indeed discussing a project. However, it fell through in the end. As for what the project was and why it failed, he didn't elaborate, and Lemon didn't want to ask. Instead, he was more interested in Jim Carrey himself. How did such a slightly dull actor perform the exaggerated comedy effects on the screen? It's quite curious. Could it be that every comedian has another personality hidden and has the ability to make the audience laugh? Chapter 321 Jim Carrey, Subscription Recommendation. A coffee shop near the Warner headquarters building, on the second floor, by the window. The three of them ordered some snacks, pastries, and coffee, and sat down. Actually, there was nothing to say. It was like they had finally met, and they wanted to take advantage of the chance encounter to invite each other. Jim Carrey and his agent had similar ideas. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Sangle took the initiative to guide the topic to movies. "Director Lemon, do you have any new creative plans recently?" "Yes, there are some plans." Sangle was just asking casually. After all, he would try to make friends, whether there were any. But such an answer could not help but make people think about it. Whether it would work or not, we should at least ask first to test the waters. Such a well-qualified director, a director who is in the limelight, and a director who has made over $300 million in North America, how could we not give it a try? Sangle winked. Jim Carrey was no longer silent, opened his mouth and asked, "So, Director Lemon, is there a role suitable for me?" Lemon did not speak, nor did he shake his head or nod, but was just thinking about something. But in the eyes of the two people on the opposite side, such a silent action made people feel very bad. "I thought that a simple verbal invitation might make people unhappy." Sangle immediately smiled and tried to smooth things over. "If it's not suitable, then forget it. We just asked casually. There is nothing to do." Lemon came back to his senses and said, "No, I was just thinking about Jim Carrey's image." "Yes, image and temperament. Jim Carrey is undoubtedly a genius in comedy. In his early years, he was famous for imitating celebrities and was a resident guest on those funny variety shows. Later, he gradually formed his own unique exaggerated funny style with his unparalleled muscle control. Many people say that he is very funny just standing there, without body language, just relying on that face. After entering the entertainment industry, he became famous in Hollywood with the Ace Ventura series and The Mask, and established his position in comedy movies in one fell swoop. After that, everyone knows Jim Carrey is tired of comedy, or rather, he is tired of entertaining the audience with performances that are so funny that he is numb and disgusted. He had no choice before, but now he wants to change his identity, that is, to transform. When faced with the difficulty of transformation, it seems that every actor wants to get something back from the Oscars. Everyone is complaining about Leo's road to being a runner-up, but little do they know that Jim Carrey has also been a runner-up for these years. Compared with his achievements in comedy, he has been walking very slowly in recent years, and the road seems to be getting narrower and narrower. So, at first glance, facing Lyman, a director who has won both Oscars and Cannes recognition, saying that it is his image, he can't help but feel a little nervous. Lyman was still staring at him. Jim Carrey smiled and asked, "Do you need me to stand up?" trying to make himself less embarrassed. Unexpectedly, Lyman really nodded. Jim Carrey pushed the chair away and really stood up. After a long time, Lyman waved his hand, indicating that he could sit down. It is undeniable that Jim Carrey is not handsome, but he has a unique temperament. It is not the ability to create jokes with every move on the screen, but when he is not deliberately exaggerated, he has a kind of dullness of a middle-aged man. As for acting, his acting foundation is very solid. Yes, comedy performances require more solid posture and dialogue, and he has always been a leader in this aspect. Thinking about it this way, he is really suitable for a role. A work that Lyman has thought of filming. When I saw the face behind this comedian again, the story suddenly emerged in my mind. An inspirational movie about dreams, The Dreamer, which was also starred by a comedian in his previous life. If $1 Million Baby is to impress, move, and inspire people with a very cruel reality, then The Dreamer is to inspire people with a very relaxed attitude. The way of expression between the two is different, but the ideas they want to convey at the end are the same. Moreover, Jim Carrey is also in line with the role in the plot. A middle-aged man who loves to daydream, is full of fantasy, but has always been terrible. He was in a very difficult time. His transformation was not recognized, and he did not want to return. Of course, the more important point was that Lyman liked this story very much. He thought it would be very interesting to film it, and it would complement $1 Million Baby. The most precious thing in life is to try, and the most terrible thing is to give up. It is just right to have this state of mind. If you are willing, wait for me for 2 weeks, and come back to prepare the project. At the same time, you must be the male lead. But if you want to be better, you have to gain weight recently, and have some fat on your belly. Puff. Sandler, who was drinking coffee, almost spit out the coffee he drank when he heard it. Lyman's meaning was really unexpected. Sandler even suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. Then, he looked at Jim Carrey. This is the real protagonist. Jim Carrey was not so shocked, but he was still a little surprised. Seriously speaking, this may be the fastest time he accepted a role. He didn't even know what the script was about, but the director had already determined that he was the protagonist. I don't know if this is recognition or honor. Think about how much effort he put in when he first debuted, and how many times he was rejected before he got a chance to perform. Think about it again. The movie Bruce Almighty he starred in last year was sniped. That time, bad guys just happened to hit his movie. I don't know how big the gap is, and how much attention has been sucked away. However, he is not very angry with Lyman, but thinks that he is capable. Today, by chance, the two have the opportunity to work together again. Jim Carrey feels weird. What is this? Director Lyman, I didn't hear it wrong just now. Sandler couldn't help asking. The leading actor of the new film, is it so easy to get a promise? Lyman smiled and said, of course, I want to ask Jim Carrey to be the leading actor of my next movie. Before this, the two of them just habitually built a good relationship with promising directors and tried to contact them. After really confirming it, they felt an inexplicable feeling. Gain weight. How much? Jim Carrey was concerned about the second half of Lyman's words. It's very simple. Don't do any body shaping. Just eat a little more and gain some weight naturally. Anything else? No, we'll talk about it in detail when I get back from France. Anyway, just reserve your schedule, which is around the end of May to August. No problem. Then it's settled. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Chapter 320 to Kindness. Subscription recommendation. May 20th was the day of departure. Lyman packed his luggage and prepared to go back to Cannes. Thomas and Hilary Swank were the only ones traveling with him. Ryan wanted to go with him, but he had already gone back for a vacation last time. In addition, the company was busy with affairs, and with Lyman gone again, there was a lack of management staff, so he had no choice but to stay and look after the house. He was probably drinking bitter coffee in the office, reviewing work, and signing grants. As for why only the leading actress followed him, it was because this trip was not a big deal, and Eastwood had already gone to Cannes in advance. The girl was bored because she couldn't get any work, so she was very happy to accept Lyman's invitation. As for the things that needed to be prepared, in addition to a few changes of clothes, there was a copy of $1 Million Baby. This was the final version of the movie, with the soundtrack, narration, and subtitles. They were all produced slowly by Lyman, Thomas, and Ryan during that period. Of course, the copy was in the hands of Warner's people, and they were also responsible for all matters related to the film screening. At 1:30 p.m., the three of them flew to Paris International Airport and then took a car to their destination. When they arrived in Cannes, Lyman felt very relaxed. Everything in front of him was still so familiar. Since he came here, he has been to Venice, many cities in the United States, and Australia, Canada, New Zealand and other places to shoot scenes, but he didn't feel much. Only Cannes can make him feel physically and mentally comfortable. Anyway, it's a strange feeling, full of intimacy. When I returned home, everything was no different from when I left. This time of year is also the time when there are the most tourists. It's lively and everyone's topic of discussion is mostly movies. It can be said that the Cannes Film Festival has deeply influenced this seaside town. It has penetrated into the culture and blood of the city. There has never been a place that can attract so many tourists with a name. People from all over the world gathered here densely. But the funny thing is that everyone rushed here with love and piety for movies, but they didn't know that in the eyes of some people, it was just a business. After all, Cannes claims to have fair film selection, but generally only two types of people can participate in the exhibition. One is the direct line cultivated by Cannes, such as Lyman. The other is the works promoted by newcomers or powerful film companies, which are alternative direct lines, or rely on relationships, connections or their own influence. In short, without some connections, no matter how good the quality of the film is, no matter how novel the expression method is, it is difficult to get the opportunity to participate in the exhibition in a lifetime. On the contrary, the extremely stubborn judges in Berlin still have some possibility to support a filmmaker who has nothing. After all, Cannes is too valuable now. Just from the data, there are more than 1,300 films registered this year, but no more than 60 will eventually enter the main unit and compete for the grand prize, including marginal awards such as film critics and media reviews. The organizers of Cannes like to maintain their own attention. To have attention, big directors and big productions are naturally indispensable. This is also the reason why Cannes compromised with Hollywood. Look, didn't the Berlin Film Festival make a fool of itself? In recent years, the winning works have been forgotten without even a sound. On the other hand, Cannes and the Oscars are better at creating momentum than each other, which is why they are so popular today. So, to put it bluntly, the quota for the exhibition was actually predetermined from the beginning. Before the film festival came, they had all been divided up by those in need. Occasionally, a few were left, and they had to support local directors or newcomers recommended by direct predecessors. How could there be other opportunities to stand out? If you want to go to a first-class film festival to show your face, do you have a pass, my friend? New works by big directors, local forces, recommendations from influential predecessors, and awesome film companies. There are only these four options to choose from, nothing else. Therefore, a director with no background, with a completely unfamiliar work, through the normal registration process, and then still thinking about being shortlisted for the main competition unit of Cannes, is basically dreaming. Lyman woke up from this dream as early as when he registered for Venice. Even though he now has all four options, and is blessed with natural advantages, he is happy, not because of his strong background, but simply because of the joy of returning home. He has passed the time when he can only prove himself with awards. The weather in Cannes in May is just right. The warm but not too hot sunshine makes the film palace shine even more brilliantly. The seagulls flutter their wings and glance at the surging crowd below. In fact, today is the second day after the opening of the film festival. Lyman did not catch up with the opening ceremony. I heard that the opening film was Bad Education, directed by Pedro Almodovar, a Spanish director. It's a pity that he was tired from traveling that day and really didn't have the energy to watch it. He didn't go to the hotel, but slept in his not so spacious apartment for a night. The golden light coming in from the skylight gradually brightened the room. Such light woke Lemon up. He half sat up and leaned against the head of the bed with a dazed look on his face. Jet lag is a headache. Yesterday, he was so tired that he went to bed early. But at night, he couldn't fall asleep, no matter what time it was. After a long time, he finally forced himself to fall asleep, but it felt like he had just laid down and the sun was up again. He scratched his hair, rubbed his face, and looked at the clock on the wall. The seconds were ticking, and it was already past 9 in the morning. It was time to wake up at this time. Although it was very uncomfortable, Lemon still went to brush his teeth and wash his face. After a delicious breakfast, he recovered. Cannes is not big, and the community is even more concentrated. The location of his apartment is only a dozen minutes away from the film palace. After breakfast, Lemon walked over slowly. The people from Warner are still discussing the screening with the organizer, mainly arranging the theater and the screening time. Actually, it is similar to the cinema screening. Some of the theaters built in Cannes have more seats and good locations, while others are a bit shabby and have relatively less capacity. As for the time period, it is the same as the prime time of the cinema. Of course, Lemon does not need to care about these things. That is what the distributor should do. Warner has too much experience in this area and is quite proficient in the smoothness and operation of participating in film festivals. Perhaps only Europa Films, which has a good location, can surpass Cannes. Speaking of which, Lemon also talked to Luc Besson on the phone when he came here. His transporter brought Lemon more than 4.6 million in revenue, so he should say thank you. Chapter 323, Wandering, Subscription Recommendation. With nothing to do, Lemon went to see a movie called Clean. This is Cannes, and there are many movies showing in the theater. Even many filmmakers who did not participate in the exhibition will try to find an empty space to show it. As for why he chose this one, it was entirely because the star of the movie was Zhang Manyu. He went in to see it after seeing the poster. The black and white poster, the frigid title. If it weren't for that figure, it would be hard to attract people. The director is a Frenchman named Olivier Assayas. Speaking of which, this man is Manyu's current husband. The two met in 1996. Olivier upholds the tradition of the French director industry and is extremely fond of and accepts the culture of other countries. He also filmed Portrait of Hou Hsien because his favorite director is Hou Hsien and he is a loyal fan. The Lost Tomb was the first collaboration with Manyu, and then they fell in love because of the play, or maybe they cherished each other. Anyway, since then, the two began a romantic relationship. In 1998, they officially entered the Palace of Marriage. As a direct descendant of Cannes, the screening hall of this film is very good and spacious. When Lemon entered, it was almost full. Watching the movie, it is a typical literary style. It tells the story of a popular music program host, played by Zhang Manyu, who was imprisoned for 6 months for duping, and her husband died directly due to overdose. Everyone around her thinks that she is the reason for the breakdown of the family, and her son is taken away by her grandparents to be raised. As for the later plot, it is the story of how she changed herself after she was released from prison in order to regain custody of her son. It is a very common theme about redemption, and it is also a very common style of art films. Therefore, the rhythm of this film is very slow. If it were not for the great breakthrough of Maggie Cheung's image and the role she created, the breath of life would be good, and there would be no big highlights. It is quite dull. Lemon also understands the theme that the movie wants to express. It is nothing more than saying that no one can do nothing wrong in his life. It is not terrible to make mistakes. The key is whether you have the courage to face life again. The ending of the movie is also the theme. The child's grandparents are impressed by the host's strength and independence and are willing to support her and the child to rebuild their family. Well, it's perfect. After the screening, the audience discussed the plot sporadically. Lemon also followed him out of the screening room and was about to go somewhere else when he heard a familiar voice. Lemon. Turning his head, He saw a man with the portrait of Emperor Tezu of the Ming Dynasty in the middle school history book walking over, a high forehead, an elongated face, and a conspicuous big chin. Are you Yuan's Hang Tarantino? Well, in fact, many directors don't look that good. After all, they don't rely on their looks to make a living. The same is true for Quentin Tarantino. He was invited to be the chairman of the jury this session. When he saw Lemon, he took the initiative to come over and say hello. Speaking of which, he was very upset with Lemon because of the film, but he never held grudges. That's all in the past. Besides, he is a talented and capable director. Well, in fact, it was the people from Warner who found him through their connections and asked him to support Lemon, and he agreed. Quentin. Lemon looked surprised and then glanced at the other man who followed him. This guy has a normal look, but of course, he is not handsome. This is my good friend Robert Rodriguez, who is also a film director. Quentin took the initiative to introduce. Well, Quentin is indeed a very loyal person. Later, the most famous work directed by this director, Sin City, was successfully promoted by Quentin Tarantino, who always supported his friend. In order to increase his popularity, he took the initiative to shoot a clip, put his own name on it, and strongly promoted Robert. The two have collaborated many times, including Quentin's From Dusk Till Dawn, which was written by Robert. They also co-directed Grindhouse, and Robert's part was called Planet of Terror. This guy also shot Alita, Battle Angel, which was written by Uncle Cameron. He is considered a very good director. However, he cannot compare with the two in front of him now. Several people shook hands politely. Robert Rodriguez smiled and said, "Hello, Director Lemon. Nice to meet you." "Me too. Your new film is being exhibited this time." Quentin Tarantino took over the topic and said, "It's a good opportunity for us to go and show our support. I wonder how your film is arranged. It will be screened at 5 p.m. tomorrow at the Lur Theater." This was the situation that Warner called to notify him, and Lemon told him the truth. "Well, we will definitely go when the time comes. Thank you." The few of them were not that familiar with each other. If it weren't for Warner, Quentin would not want to see Lemon. After all, he was very grateful to Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey hated Lemon very much. As a result, his impression of Lemon was definitely not very good. In addition, when Kill Bill was screened, it was so produced by Lemon's Firefly Pictures that stole the limelight. It would be a lie to say that he didn't care at all, but it's not to the point of being enemies. Each of them relied on their own skills. If one of them lost, it wouldn't reach that level. Hotel. "Robert, how is your discussion with Franco Miller going?" Quentin Tarantino asked with concern. As early as 2 months ago, Robert Rodriguez wanted to adapt a comic book, and that comic book was created by Franco Miller. This is a real master and very famous in the comics industry. He still has some doubts. I will find a way to convince him. Quentin has put a lot of effort into the Sin City project. As early as when Robert had the idea of adapting this, he went directly to convince Harvey and other executives to invest in the project. As for Franco Miller, he simply cares about his hard work and doesn't want to be filmed randomly. So, for these few months, Robert has been trying to contact and convince Franco Miller. Quentin has known Robert for a long time. He has been in contact with Robert since his debut, and he is really kind to him. In terms of work style, the two are also very similar, or it can be said that the two have been together for a long time and have some influence on each other. For example, they both like to have twists and turns and constantly create suspense through editing, such as the answers to Color and Violence. As for Quentin, his movies have a strong mix and match style. To put it nicely, it is a tribute to the classics, and to be more pretentious, it is postmodern. As for Robert, after all, he is a screenwriter, so he pays more attention to the arrangement of the story. He is not so imaginative, but he also likes to capture the characters' lines, which also highlights his chatterbox. The two of them can be regarded as a typical example of helping each other. Chapter 324 Movie Palace. Subscription recommendation. The Soulure is a screening hall that can accommodate more than 800 people. $1 Million Baby was scheduled here. There will be one screening in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and it will be arranged like this every day until the end. When the people from Warner came to deliver the specific schedule booklet. They seemed a little proud. They have reason to be proud. Such treatment is the best during the entire Cannes screening. For ordinary movies, it is good to have one screening a day, but some will only be screened once every few days. There are differences. The reference conditions advertised not only need to look at the audience's choice, but also the backstage. Fortunately, the organizers are very optimistic about this movie. One of the reasons is because of Bad Guys. It is precisely because of the outstanding performance that people will pay extra attention to it. 21st, Sunny. I had an international long distance call with Eva last night. We were so excited that we talked until midnight. When I woke up again, I couldn't help but stay in bed for a while. Brush your teeth, wash your face, and eat. Back to the room. Lemon changed into a new suit. Filmmakers don't really care about these, but film festivals do. It's not a form, but more like etiquette. There are media at the film festival, and we need atmosphere, and sometimes we need to take photos for publicity. Dressing casually can easily give people a bad impression. There is no pious attitude. With attitude, then, it is the movie itself. He combed his hair carefully and tied his tie. Then he went to the movie palace. There was a poster in the exhibition hall, which was a composition of Hilary Swank wearing boxing gloves and swinging at a sandbag. The light and shadow were dark. There was a cold texture. It was very delicate. After watching for a long time, he walked into the exhibition hall. The Warner people were chatting with an old white man. Seeing him, he waved. "Lemon, you brought another work. I'm looking forward to it." The old man was from the organizing committee, and Lemon had met him when he screened Bad Guys last time. "Hello, Mr. Greet." There was still more than half an hour before his movie was screened. Some people who promised to come to support him also came. Quentin Robert first. He saw Quentin smiling and waving as he walked into the theater. His good friend Robert beside him also greeted him in a friendly manner. Director Lemon. Not long after, Thomas and Hilary Swank also arrived. Don't get me wrong, they stayed in the same hotel. Thomas was still the same, smiling, standing next to Lemon. Hilary Swank was not beautiful, but she had put a lot of thought into her outfit today. She put on some light makeup on her face, which gave her a bit of a mature woman's flavor. If he had seen her fierceness and her cool outfit before, Lemon would have believed that she was a man. On the streets and around the Palace of Cinema, groups of movie fans and tourists were making their own selections. There were not many movies screened today, only 7. The most famous one was $1 Million Baby. For the French people, Lemon's name was more familiar. They also liked to recommend this movie to outsiders or people who didn't know much about it. Even if they themselves hadn't seen it, it didn't stop them from supporting it. So, Lemon chatted with some people who came to say hello, and looked at the audience coming in from time to time. As time got closer, more and more people came. Soon, the venue was full. Those who didn't buy tickets could only leave helplessly. When it was almost time, the staff came to remind them. Amid applause, Lemon led the main creators to sit in the first row. "I wish I could do this in the future," Olivia Assayas said a little excitedly in the guest seat. He admired Lemon very much. It was because he himself had been in major film festivals for many years that he understood how difficult it was to find a balance between business and art. Who doesn't want their movies to have both depth and public recognition? Seeing that the staff only introduced it briefly, the fans applauded. It was really beautiful. Zhang Manyu on the side was not so excited. She has been in the film industry for so many years and has seen too much. Moreover, Lemon's movies were introduced to the mainland or Hong Kong Island. How to say it, the market is just like that. In comparison, people will not care too much about who is the director of a foreign film. Three Idiots probably made more than 2 million Hong Kong dollars. Bad Guys was a little better, close to 10 million. I heard that China Film Group gained a lot by operating this movie. But for the audience, Tom Cruise and Cage are their focus. Lemon. Maybe there will be a few fans. After all, there are people watching, and there will always be people who will understand. However, her mind is not on this, but on herself. She underestimated the kind of flirtatiousness in the bones of French men. After so many years of marriage, she was very tired. Looking at Olivia again, she became more determined. Let's get a divorce. In fact, Clean was also Zhang Manayu's last movie before retiring. Since then, her marriage has also come to an end. The lights on the ceiling went out one after another. Familiar butterflies. Familiar light spots. The bright colors have the qualifications to attract the audience's attention. The movie started under a small room. Eastwood sat at the desk and took out a lot of envelopes from the drawer. He wrote letters to his daughter every day, sent them out, and they were returned. He is not good at expressing himself. He only has a boxing gym, which is always with him. The old man put the envelope away again and stubbornly wrote another letter, a letter that he knew would be returned. The camera slowly pulled up and aimed at the moon in the sky. The moonlight was beautiful. The name of the movie suddenly appeared, $1 Million Baby. Then, the screen flashed, came to a boxing ring. The crowd below was full of cheers, and on the boxing ring were two strong men fighting each other. In the bustle, an inappropriate narration sounded. Morgan Freeman's deep and magnetic voice, as if kissed by God, slowly revealed the story. People like violence. When they pass by a car accident, they will slow down to look at the body. These people claim that they like boxing, but they don't know what boxing is at all. He said it very calmly, as if he was explaining a simple fact. Just like a boxer who has reached the age of 40, slowly lit a cigarette, and then strokes his past stories and his views on boxing. With the help of one of the sturdy black men, he knocked the other man to the ground with a beautiful and powerful right hook. He couldn't get up. The emotions of the spectators around him were instantly raised to a climax. But the plain explanation continued. But, boxing is about dignity. Win your own, and deprive your opponent of his. In the crowd, a woman was also watching all this. Chapter 325 Dignity. Subscription recommendation. This narration is very cool and pretentious. Quentin Tarantino twisted his body unnaturally in his seat, wondering if he could do the same when he made a movie in the future. Just a few words create an unusual atmosphere. This connection makes the movie seem particularly ceremonial. You can vaguely feel the ridicule of those spectators who think they love boxing, but are actually just expressing their inner violent emotions. Especially when one person was knocked down by another, the blood was dripping, and the jubilant noise became louder and louder, which was very intriguing. Thinking of this, Quentin subconsciously turned his head to look at his good friend Robert. Then he saw Robert also staring at the big screen with interest, as if his interest was aroused. Interesting. Lemon is still a bit of a thing. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were re-engaged in the movie. The scene changed. Came to a boxing gym. The camera pans from the main entrance to the interior decoration, from west to east, sweeping across the training ground, a group of students, and Eddie, played by Morgan Freeman, who is holding a mop and cleaning the floor. Then, the camera continues to move. Frankie Dunn, played by Eastwood, also comes to the gym, and Eddie greets him. This third-person perspective camera language is still advancing the plot, as Maggie, played by Hilary Swank, wants to get Frank his training but is rejected. Several characters appear one by one. A senior boxing coach, who has run a boxing gym with him for more than 20 years. Eddie, who was once a boxer, retired and became a cleaning staff for the maintenance of the gym, and is also Frank's longtime friend, as well as Jay, a black boxer who appeared at the beginning and won, and Maggie, who inexplicably wants to be a female boxer. After Eddie finished cleaning the floor as usual, he found Frankie and said that there was a new student in the gym. Frankie took a look and found that it was Maggie, the girl he rejected. At this time, she was practicing alone on a sandbag. Frankie was confused because he didn't want to train a girl. He had been a boxing coach for so many years and had never trained a girl. But Eddie said there was no reason not to charge her training fee. Maggie was still hitting the sandbag. An expert could tell at a glance that she had never had any professional experience, and even her punches and steps were messy. After that, a week passed. Maggie still came to the boxing gym every day to train. Frankie was simply annoyed by her. Once again, he made it clear that he would not accept female disciples. But Maggie still ignored it and continued to hit the sandbag and skip rope by herself. She always practiced until late and would not leave until the boxing gym was about to close. No one knew why she insisted so much. It was about to close again. The empty boxing gym had long lost the vitality it had during the day. Frankie and Eddie were packing up and preparing to close the gym. But not far away, under the bright incandescent light, a girl was still practicing on the sandbag, either punching or sweeping her legs. Extremely focused. Sweat had already soaked through her clothes. Seeing that Frankie was about to turn off the lights again, Maggie repeated her previous proposal. "Sir, do you want to train me? I'm very good at fighting, and I will win the championship." Frankie shook his head. "I don't train girls." After getting the answer again, Maggie suppressed her disappointment and smiled. She took the white towel handed over by Eddie and wiped herself, and left the boxing gym alone again. Frankie thought that this should make her give up. Maggie left the boxing gym and walked along the street to a community. From the surrounding facilities, it can be seen that this is not a wealthy place. Maggie lives here. As usual, after saying hello to the neighbor across the street, she returned to her home. Interestingly, the actor who played this neighbor was Nicolas Cage, and his guest role was this inconspicuous passerby. Turning on the lights in the living room, Maggie took the change of clothes and went into the bathroom. After taking a shower, Maggie changed her clothes and took out a few pieces of broken steak from her backpack. Morgan Freeman's voice was cold again. It also gave the audience a preliminary understanding of this girl who was determined to be a boxer. "I used to box, and I also saw some of my past shadows in her. That is a determination, to be willing to gamble everything for a dream that others cannot understand. She is a poor child. At the age of 27 or 28, she is not married and does not have a family of her own. Maggie is a girl from a remote town. She usually works as a waitress in a restaurant. She has little money, and the rented house has taken up most of her salary. In order to maintain training, she often picks up other people's leftovers when cleaning up. This is why her dinner is a few steaks, even though the room is very shabby and narrow. She secretly collected them during the day when she was at work. But there is no way the physical training on weekdays requires her to do this. Otherwise her body will easily collapse. Seeing this, many people still don't understand where her stubbornness is. She chose boxing instead of finding someone to marry or working hard, but she is obsessed with this. Maggie actually doesn't know why she is so persistent. Maybe she just wanted to bring some changes to her monotonous life. So she still insisted on training every day, hoping to impress Frankie. But Frankie's attitude was still so determined. Only Eddie watched her silently and encouraged her. In his opinion, if there is any trick in the world of boxing, it must be to fight beyond the limit. He admired Maggie and thought she was that kind of person. In the movie, the story continues, but Quentin fell into deep thought. Lemon's skillful rhythm control and experienced clue handling, step by step slowly shaping the characters, and the advancement of the plot is always so detailed and appropriate, not losing excitement, nor straightforward and boring. It's amazing. Even more outstanding is Lemon's clear intention. In the narrative process, one or two small details can often be used to polish both the characters and the story. For example, after training, Maggie did not forget to practice dodging steps when walking on the road. In the eyes of some passers-by who looked at her like a lunatic, she still did her own thing. For example, even if the training was hard, she still had great enthusiasm. From her emotions, we can know that boxing is what she likes. Even if Eddie simply corrected her punching posture, Maggie could smile and thank him from the bottom of her heart. To be honest, it is very good to see such a hard-working girl. It is an inexplicable and comfortable viewing experience, which is rare for works of the same type. It was also at this moment that Quentin suddenly admired Lemon. For a director, nothing is more convincing than his work. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.